here. This mic works. All right. Oh, they're seeing each other. I don't think those were ever ours. I think they were always the unions. Anyway, I think they're just in one of those rooms. Like, we could go grab them real quick.
I think it would be helpful because
Yeah.
you want to pull up the agenda.
Oh, yes. I need to correct this. We do have the pharmacist out now.
I need to like get it. What if I decide? I honestly kind of hate it. Yes. No, like. Yeah, I was very shocked. Oh. I'm an object in mystery.
There, that works better.
No, I hate that.
Sorry about that. You're good. Just let me know when we're ready to get started.
No, we can be ready literally right now. Watch this. My Prep's poll is out. Let the people know.
Is that in the regular channel?
It's in the regular channel. I'm gonna send you.
Oh, okay.
I also need to add Tracy, even though she's not.
Oh, yeah. Tracy
so
Tran.
Tracy and
Is that it?
Tracy and Jonah both will be here.
Whack. It'll be fine. I'll refresh on the main screen so it shows.
You know you do technically a sleeping. Oh, okay. No. That's only for counseling. I look at she had just ate the bullet and pretended to be in the Asian American. Attendance poll is posted.
You have a mic next to you.
I don't want to turn it on. I don't have to do that.
Oh, you press the button at the bottom.
I actually do know that.
Okay. Oh, God, everyone went silent. I think we're ready.
We can.
Ready? Good evening, everyone, and welcome back for break. The Students' Assembly is called to order for Legislative Cycle 11. You'll see on our agenda tonight, we have two pieces of consent legislation, and then our main item of the evening, Bill 2025-060, a bill to propose the required student fees for fiscal year 2026. We'll get started with our usual formality, the approval of the minutes. These minutes are posted in the Students' Assembly Teams channel. Are there any additions or corrections to be made to the minutes from the last meeting? Hearing none, is there any objection to approving the minutes from the last meeting? All right, they are approved. We'll move on to our officer reports. First up, the student body president. Time.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming to Senate tonight. Just a couple updates. So last night we hosted our first Student Senate movie night at Liberty Hall on Mass Street. And this was hosted by and planned by our outreach director, Casey Soper. So thank you to everyone who attended. Thank you to
Sorry.
everyone who attended. And Casey is working with Liberty Hall to create a partnership with them to allow other student organizations to be able to host movie nights like this for free, because Casey was able to host this movie night for us for free. It didn't cost us anything to host it. And so he's working with Liberty Hall to make this available to other student organizations. And this is an effort to create just an additional outlet for students to be able to host events and engage with other students on campus and community partners for free. So KU's Indigenous Culture Festival starts next week, and there will be a free film screening next Wednesday at 7 p.m. at Liberty Hall of Fancy Dance, and it's a film produced by a KU professor. So put that on your radar if that sounds interesting to you, to go and support our professors and the work that they do. Something that our outreach director, Casey Soper, and our government relations director, Molly McGarry, are working on is to host the first ever Student Senate Gala. So still getting the details on that. Right now, the plan is it will be Friday, April 18th in the Burge Union. And so more details coming for that, but that is supposed to be a formal, fun, end of the year event for Student Senate. So again, more details to come once that is finally planned, but that's the date and the time, and it's from 5 to 9 p.m. But again, we'll have a formal invitation for everyone once everything's finalized. Then the last announcement is the NSSE engagement session that's happening tonight, and that is the National Student Survey of Engagement. And so that's happening upstairs from 8 to 9. So as we finish up tonight, if you all could go up there and add your input, administration would really appreciate that, and that would help them in the work that they're doing with the university for those surveys. So that's all I've got.
Any questions for the student body president? Yes. Make sure you get Catchbox. Also, 1 second. Since we have a lot of new people here, you need to have a microphone or people can't hear you on the live stream. So just wait when you're recognized to speak and we'll get one to you. Also, if you could please introduce yourself with your name before you ask, that would be fantastic. Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. I was just wondering, following up on, I believe before spring break, you mentioned that you had a event with KBOR. I was just wondering, did that occur, and like, how did that go?
Are
Did
you
guys
talking
have-
about, when I went to talk at the Capitol?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that reminder. So right before spring break, I went to speak at the state capitol. I was invited by the chair of the Higher Education Budget Committee, along with other student body presidents of the other 6 public Kansas institutions and some of the private schools and community colleges. And so I think that went really well. It was a good conversation.
Any further questions? Yes, in the back. Watch out.
No, I'm not going. Too many. Who was it?
Ben Shea, music senator. I'm just wondering, are there any bills on the current agenda that you would use your veto on if they're passed in their current form?
I don't have planned to, but things can always change. Different ideas and topics can arise, and so it's always a possibility. But I don't, at the time, have any plan to.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Yes, over here. Could we please, Samara, would you mind stewarding this Catchbox? Thank you. Sorry. That one does not work. It's dead. They didn't give us anything.
Can't catch. I might be confused, but how much does the Senate Gala cost for, like, not for attendees?
It doesn't cost anything.
Well, no, how much is, like, it,
To
who's
put it
funding?
on. Yeah, so we got the funding from, so we're still figuring all of it out, but we just, these 2 people on my exec staff, they were just able to acquire Pepsi funding. And then there's some other funds, like donated funds, that we might be able to use.
We are out of time for our current speaker. If there are more questions, I can hear an extension of time. Otherwise, thank you very much. The student body vice president. Not here? Okay. In that case, we'll go ahead and skip the graduate student body president. Ethan, I know Ethan's here. Sorry, the treasurer.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Hope you all had a great spring break. Now we're back. I just have one update about the Wednesday night fund where we're at. We're currently at an amount of $13,240 left for allocation for the rest of this remaining academic year. And then in addition, I'm starting to work on liberations for line and block after we get through all the required student fee package stuff. So if anyone's interested in being a part of that conversation, please just email me or Megan. We'd love to get more people on board. And that's all I have.
Any questions for the treasurer? I will add that our only bill for Wednesday night funding tonight is for $271, so Mox Nix. Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello again, everyone. I'll just give a couple updates on stuff I've been working on. Started off with the Educational Opportunity Fund. So again, still kind of indefinitely on hold with the fee proposal being held up. Now that it's gotten through Finance Council, hopefully that can get through here relatively soon. And then hoping to get that done as soon as possible, hopefully here in the next couple weeks. Outside of that, one thing I've been working on is aggregating historical data for Student Senate funding trends, particularly over the past 5 years, which is what I've been able to get data for. So aggregating that into like a simple, easy to understand spreadsheet to get insights into how we've been spending money year after year to help make better decisions that are based in data. And then finally, CDF going well. I believe we've spent just over about $55,000 this academic year, so that's exciting stuff. And other than that, I don't think I have anything else. If there are any questions.
Any questions for the Fund Development Director? Yes. Thank you, Simran.
Tanya Singh, Law Student Senator. Is it okay if I ask 2 questions?
You can have one. We'll see if anyone else has a question. If not, we'll get back to you.
Okay. My first question is, you mentioned that you were making a spreadsheet of data for Student Senate funding. I wanted to know more about like the data categories, what aspects of spending you were tracking.
Yeah, and so this has been something that I started, I don't know, maybe a month ago. So how it's currently set up is the documentation and records that we keep, they exist, but it's kind of sporadic and kind of sparsed out in different areas. So what I've been trying to do right now, and this could change as time goes on and the scope might broaden or narrow, but essentially look through every piece of legislation that's gotten passed from fiscal year 21 through this current year 25 and track particularly all funding expenditures and categorize it based on organization, the organization that's being funded, what the funding is going to be used for or like was allocated for, and then the amount that it was. So again, just keep it simple and then hopefully identify any important trends that might come out of that when making decisions in the future.
We are now out of time for our speaker. If there are further questions, I'll hear an extension for time. Yes? Oh. There has been a motion to extend the speaker's time by 2 minutes. Is there a second? Second from the Vice Chair of Student Rights and Affairs. Are there any objections to extending speaker's time by 2 minutes? Hearing none, we'll go back to questions. Yes, if there are no other questions, we'll go back to you.
My follow-up question is the final work product that you've described, the spreadsheet. Where would this document be accessible and to whom would it be accessible?
The plan.
Mic check.
Go ahead. Just testing the mics.
Oh, sorry. The plan right now is to put that in the Files tab in the General channel for the Senate teams, so that'd be accessible by everyone when the finished product is completed.
Any further questions? Further questions for the Fund Development Director? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Oh, next one's me. Here you go. Can I please have 3 minutes?
Yep.
Hi, guys. First of all, sorry for the cramped room. We were looking at getting Woodruff because we expected a lot of people to show up today. That was something that the Internal Affairs Director recommended, but Woodruff was already taken by another event in advance, which is why we're stuck here and why we had to cram a bunch of chairs in. So first of all, sorry about that. Second of all, the Student Executive Council met last night. We initiated disciplinary proceedings against 2 student senators for allegedly violating their attendance requirements. We also decided to, absent any intervening advice from student affairs or any big issues with the upcoming student senate elections, we will be holding our joint Senate meeting on April 30th. So that's the meeting where we have all of the incoming members of Student Senate, including the new student senators and the new student body president and vice president. It's also when we elect the new speaker and the new internal affairs director, as well as the new Lawrence City Commission representative, which is a new position for next year. So yeah, that is a very important date in setting up our leadership for next year. It's also a good date for rounding out the year for our current members and introducing new members to Senate. So please mark that on your calendars. I've adjusted the front page of the Senate website, which has our meeting scheduled to reflect that. What else going on? We've had continued meetings of the Constitutional Review Committee, which are going very well, hosted by our Chair of Student Rights and Affairs, Emma Atherton. So those have been going well, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to finish up here soon. I'd say that's about it. We have this meeting and 2 legislative cycles left. April 30th, if that is joint Senate, will be our last meeting of the year. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, hi guys. So under Elijah's chair, there's actually a bag marked Haskell donations. Yes, please pull that out, hold it up. It's orange bag, lovely. Please direct all your donations, non-perishable food, menstrual products, and clothing there for to support Haskell in this time of need. And that's gonna also be in my office, right over there, through Wednesday. Please fill out the attendance poll if you came in late, even if you aren't a senator. And that's all for now, actually.
Questions for the Internal Affairs Director? Yes.
Ham Penning, Fund Development Director. Would you mind reminding everyone what the Haskell donations, what sorts of things and items they're looking to collect?
Yeah, I'll move that to Kenneth McNally.
Kenna McNally, Community Affairs Council Chair. So last week, Community Affairs got a presentation from members of Haskell Student Government, and they requested non-perishable food items, menstrual products, toilet paper, and clothing to disperse to their students and faculty at Haskell who have been impacted by the funding cuts that resulted in about 25% of their faculty being laid off. You can find that list in the general channel of the Student Senate WebEx, as well as you can also email me.
Any further questions? All right, thank you very much. That is all of our officer reports. We'll move on to the appointment of replacement senators and then get into legislation for tonight. All of the people on the list for replacement senators have gone through the usual process of applying with the Internal Affairs Director. We've confirmed that there are vacant seats in each of these constituencies for them to fill. The appointment of each of them will take a 2/3 vote or unanimous consent. First up is Joanna for Education and Human Sciences, who I do not believe is here tonight. Regardless, is there any objection to appointing Joanna to be a student senator for Education and Human Sciences? Hearing none, we'll give her an absent round of applause. Next up is Wengeshi for Off Campus. Is Wengeshi here? Yes, can we please get a catch box back?
Raise your hand, please.
And could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Wengeshi Macharia, and I'm a marketing major here at KU. I'm a sophomore, and I was previously a Residence Hall senator, so I'm happy to be back.
Thank you. Is there any objection to appointing Wengeshi as a student senator for Off Campus? Hearing none, congratulations. Next up is Tracy Tran for the School of Pharmacy. This one was decided late because there were multiple applicants, and our Constitution provides that if there are multiple applicants for a single position, we pick 5 current student senators at random and ask them to decide who gets appointed. It's a weird system. I'm not sure why it exists, but we did select Tracy Tran, who I do not believe is here tonight. Is there any objection to appointing Tracy as a student senator for the School of Pharmacy? Hearing none, we'll give her an absent round of applause. Hey, Brendan, are you still wanting to give your officer report? We just finished up. No officer report? All right, thank you. All right, we will move on to our consent legislation for tonight. We have Bill 2025-061, a bill to fund the Pee Wee Pecker. This is at a current dollar amount of $271, as it was amended by the Student Rights and Affairs Council. So this is a pretty small amount, already went through full consideration in Finance and Rights and Affairs. Second up is Bill 2025-062, a bill to correct position names for Director of Justice and Coordinator of Staff and to adjust article numbering. This is a technical amendment to our Constitution to resolve some inconsistencies. Because it is prepared by the Internal Affairs Director, who has the responsibility to maintain consistency and professionalism in our Constitution, it is on the consent agenda. If there are any questions about it, I will direct them over to him. Are there any questions about either of these consent bills before I hear a motion to pass? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent legislation?
Motion to approve the consent.
Motion from the Vice Chair of the Student Rights and Affairs Council. Second from the Chair of the Student Rights and Affairs Council. Is there any objection to approving our consent legislation? Hearing none, these 2 bills are passed. Next up is the big one. I'm not sure the best way to set this up for you. I think this should work. Bill 2025-060, a bill to propose the required student fees. How much time do you want?
What do you think?
30?
Yeah.
30.
Check.
The Chair of the Finance Council is recognized for 30 minutes.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here. For those of you who do not know me, my name's Megan Stopper, and I'm a senior here, and this is my 3rd year serving on the Required Student Fee Review Committee. First 2 years, I was a Finance Council representative, a voting member those 2 years, and this year I am the chair. I am not a voting member on this. I merely facilitate this process. The decisions I'm going to share with you tonight are not my personal opinions, nor are they the singular personal opinions of any member of this committee, but they are the decisions made by the voting members of this committee. Okay, so what is RSF review? So Required Student Fee Review is a committee of 12 voting members that meets for 1 week per fiscal year to determine allocations of the student fee for the next fiscal year. So we are determining fiscal year 26's allocations. And so the members of this committee are 4 elected members from the Finance Council, 2 from Community Affairs, 2 from Rights and Affairs, 2 graduate students nominated by the Graduate Student Body President, the Student Body President, the Graduate Student Body President, the Student Body Vice President, the Coordinator of Staff, the Treasurer, the Fund Development Director, and a representative this year from the Edwards campus. So from February 3rd through 7th, the committee members participated in hearings for all fee entities, which is roughly 15 to 20 hours of hearings that they sat through and participated in. and completed 2 rounds of deliberations on February 7th and March 7th, which totaled in about 11 hours of deliberations. Changes to the fee structure. So in the last fiscal year, required student fees were adjusted to include the Edwards campus. So previously, if you've been here and seen this presentation, you might recall that it was called the required campus fee. Now that it involves both the Lawrence and Edwards campus, it is required student fees. So as a result, numbers from fiscal year 25 appear different than allocations granted last year. However, total amounts remain the same. So if you're looking at numbers and it looks like it went from, there are differences of like a penny or 2 pennies, and those are just rounding because we operate in terms of nickels. So if it was 324, it got moved to 325, or if it was 327, it went to 325, just so those numbers are nice and even to make the process easier. So the student survey. So we had roughly 1,100 responses, which is about equal to how many we had last year, a little bit less than 2 years ago. And that received an increase due to decreases to transit. It caused a lot more student interest in the process. And the first year that this survey was done, there were just over 900 responses. So we're right on par with what we generally see with student involvement in this survey. And so the survey is sent to every single student enrolled in classes, both on the Lawrence and Edwards campuses. And so they have the opportunity to share where they want to see their student fee dollars going towards. But so this is pretty on par with the number of responses that we've seen in past years. And this survey was open for roughly a week at the end of January, beginning of February. So just an overview of a few of the questions. So this one was, where have you been enrolled in classes during this school year? Vast majority were Lawrence campus. We have more students here. This is probably a little more publicized on the Lawrence campus. This is kind of what we expected, and it was the first year Edwards campus was part of our fee. This one asked, which of the following best described your student fee preference? So the options were no opinion, modestly increase, reduce student fees, or keep student fees at their current level. This is really right on par with what we've seen in the past couple of years. Of no student is going to act that doesn't fully understand what we do is going to actively say, yes, I want to give more money to this. But we do still have a good number of people who wanted either fees to remain flat or fees to modestly increase to continue to develop services or maintain where services are at. As a student, what do you care about the most? And there were many options, as you see, and overwhelmingly transit, healthcare, mental health services, and financial education, as well as fitness and wellness, were the largest ones answered. And again, this is really on par with what we've seen every year we sent out this survey. Transit usually overwhelmingly wins. And once again, we saw nearly 500 responses for transit. And this was the free response section. So at the end of the survey, you had the opportunity to write down whatever you wanted the fee committee to know. And so we had a lot say lower fees, a lot say transit. And then for some reason this year, we had a lot say marching band, which is not something funded through this, but that's just kind of an interesting thing I'd like to point out. And that also lends to my point that this is not the sole decider on how we allocate the fee. More, this is just a piece of the puzzle. So the total ask this year is $532.50, which is an increase of $10.45, which is roughly a 2% increase over last fiscal year. So why raise the student fee? The inflation rate in the country is at 3%, and student fees we are keeping right around a 2% increase. So the asks we received this year were almost $45, and granted our estimate that we were given by the finance office of the university was roughly $10.44, and we allocated roughly $10.45 in increases. So that's just another like penny rounding so that we are keeping with the nickels. So the guiding principles of this committee are and have always been stewardship and weighing needs versus wants. This is not student senate's money to allocate. This is student dollars. We have to make very difficult decisions, and there is no right decision as to what can be done. Nobody is going to get exactly what they want. But I really make a point to the committee that we are acting on behalf of the entire student body. This is not personal preferences or what organizations or campus entities that you have used, but what is the best decision for the entire student body. Now getting into the numbers. So for the union's building fee, asked for flat of $71.90. That was granted. The Burge Union is a fixed fee at $18.40. We are not allowed to touch that fee. The fixed fees will never change. Edwards campus is a new fee. Their ask was $11, which was granted in full. This is actually, they took a significant decrease to what they would, the amount of money they would receive from their student fee when it was separate. But in order to integrate the campuses, this was a loss that they were willing to take. The Sexual Assault Prevention and Education Center asked for a 10-cent increase from $2.95 to $3.05. This ask was granted in full. SAPEC historically has always been very good stewards of their money. They have come before this board in previous years when they received more grant money than expected and said we can take a decrease in order to better allocate this money. So they received their ask in full. Safe Ride received $12.30 in fiscal year 25. They asked for a $5 increase to $17.30. It was a decision of the committee that funds would be better allocated to transit. So the committee decided to decrease this fee by $7.30 to $5. Legal services for students received $14.65 in fiscal year 25. They requested $5.10 increase. This was granted in full. They've spent the last several years spending down their reserve, and so now they needed this increase to maintain operations. Recycling received $2.95 in fiscal year 25, asked for a 40-cent increase, which was granted in full for a new total for fiscal year 26 of $3.35. Educational Opportunity Fund received $4.23 in fiscal year 25. They asked for a decrease of 23 cents in fiscal year 26, and that ask was granted in full, so their new allocation for the year is $4. Community Supportive Services requested a flat fee of $2.58. This was decreased to $0, and it was a decision of the committee that these funds would be better allocated to campus resources that do similar things to these entities. Student Senate activity fee received $18.75 in fiscal year 25. They asked for a $3.25 increase, which was granted in part for a new total of $20. In past years, Student Senate activity fee has taken hits and decreases to ensure that other things would maintain their level of funding. Student Senate is currently facing a deficit, so this would help solve part of that problem. And so just a little further explanation of where this money goes. So the Student Senate activity fee goes to fund all of the staff positions for within Student Senate, so the exec staff, stipends for legislative officers, and it also funds block allocations, line allocations, and Wednesday night funding. So this money it becomes Student Senate money, but it is a large portion of it is allocated to student groups. So this is not just $20 going to Student Senate. This is every Wednesday when we come in here and allocate money, this is where that money comes from. Student Senate administration, this is a new fee. It was previously housed in Silk. This goes to pay the 2 staff positions that advised and work with Student Senate. So they asked for $3.50. This ask was granted in part to $3.25. University Daily Kansas received $3.65 in fiscal year 25. They had a flat ask. It was a decision of the committee to decrease to $1.50. In the resolutions, there's a little bit more of an explanation as to why the committee made these decisions, and I can explain those further when we get to that. The Office of Multicultural Affairs. So first we'll talk about facilities. That is a flat ask of 25 cents, which was granted. Operations was zeroed out, and this was shifted into the Student Engagement Center. The Community Development Fund received $1.28 in fiscal year 25, requested a 15-cent decrease this year. They received a total of a 28, or if you're rounding, 30-cent decrease this year for fiscal year 26. The fund development director oversees this, and it was under his advisement that this would be doable for the Community Development Fund. Hilltop received $3.70 in fiscal year 25. They asked for a flat fee in fiscal year 26, which was granted. The Student Involvement and Leadership Center, SILK, received $5.90 in fiscal year 25. This was shifted into both the Student Engagement Center and then the new Student Senate Administration fee. So that was the actual line of this was zeroed out. The Emily Taylor Center for Women and Gender Equity, or the ETC, once again received $2.20 in fiscal year 25, shifted into the Student Engagement Center. Jayhawk Finances received $2.70 in fiscal year 25. They requested a flat fee for fiscal year 26, which was granted. Transit Bus Procurement in fiscal year 25, they received $27.05. They asked for a $1 increase to $28.05 for fiscal year 26, which was granted in full. Operations in fiscal year 25, they received $65.75. And fiscal year 26, they asked for a $15.50 increase. This ask was granted in part to $75.35. Center for Sexuality and Gender Diversity, or the SGD, was also shifted into the Student Engagement Center. Health, so operations facilities and Burt Nash all asked for flat fees, which was granted. CAPS requested a $6 increase, which was granted in part. In fiscal year 25, they received $33.25. And in fiscal year 26, they were allocated $36.50. Recreation Services, operations, in fiscal year 25, they received $57.50. They had a request of $7.30 for fiscal year 26. This was granted in part to $58.65. And so the rationale of that one was when they presented before the fee committee, they explained that they needed $1.15 to maintain services that they already have. And then the university, the other $6.15, the university asked them to start covering the costs of the pool in Robinson. And so it was a decision of this committee that was deemed more of a want versus a need, and the committee decided to give the increase that would allow the recreation center to maintain their current services and not bring in them funding the pool. Facilities requested a flat fee of $3.15, which was allocated. And then the expansion bond is another fixed fee, so we do not touch this. It was $11.55. It stays $11.55. So totals. So as you can see, the fee has gone up by roughly $15 between fiscal year 23 and 24, another $15 between 24 and 25, and a little over $10 in this year. And as you all know, things are getting more expensive. Running all of these wonderful services we have on campus is getting more expensive. I know no one wants to pay $10 more in their student fee. I certainly wouldn't. I can't expect anyone else to. But to maintain these services that we have, that is just a necessity. Okay, resolutions. First resolution is request the university administration continue contributing funds to the operations of campus transit relating to the campus transportation fee operations to ensure that the service can operate at its pre-pandemic capacity. So in the past couple of years, when the student fee hasn't been able to fully give transit their need, the university has stepped in and contributed some funding towards that. Request the University of Daly Kansas seek alternative forms of funding that student fees, such as funding from the School of Journalism, sponsorships, and advertisement. Request that Student Senate, including future executive officers, propose removing the University of Daly Kansas from the required student fees and form a legal agreement with the UDK to the same effect by fiscal year 2027. And so to explain this a little further, in the past, there have been agreements made between Senate and the UDK that the UDK would be moved off of student fee and find funding elsewhere. but previous student body presidents, this was back like roughly 10 years ago that all this happened, that one student fee created this agreement with the UDK. And then when it was about to when it was going to go into effect, the student body president at the time did not want that and got rid of that agreement. So no one defaulted on a previous agreement. And it was just decided that they would remain on there at the time. Just as a little explanation, request university administration transfer responsibilities for maintaining pool services on the Lawrence campus away from KU Recreation Services, so the office may instead focus its funds on existing operations. Request that KU Transportation Services reallocate their resources from Safe Ride to bus operations in accordance with the rates here proposed. Request that KU Transportation Services reallocate the resources for Safe Ride to focus on services between Sunday evenings and Thursday evenings so that the service is primarily used in relation to student academics. So the decision on this was the committee wanted Safe Ride to be more utilized for getting home from libraries late at night, on campus activities, rather than using it to go to certain establishments on weekend nights. Requests that KU Transportation Services study and implement programs to reduce Safe Ride cancellation, which may include action on users who frequently request Safe Ride services and then cancel services or do not show up to the pickup location. So this is the total allocations. This is on the bill, but it's $532.50. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'd like to once again reiterate that these are not my opinions. I was just facilitating the deliberations. I was not sharing my opinions on these, and I'm not a voting member on this, but I can explain to the best of my ability anything that happened. And I assume most of you have seen the live stream of the last round of deliberations, but I'll do my best to answer any questions you have.
A few notes before we get into questions. One, speaker is about 11 minutes left for questions. After that, we can hear an extension. So I'm pausing that. Just a few notes. One, we got a text message up here. The presentation file is up under Teams. It's under the Students Assembly channel and the presentation files folder. So if you want to look over what we just saw, it's up there. I also attached it as a comment to this meeting announcement so you all can read it there. Second, please be respectful. There will be time for speeches in opposition and speeches in favor later. I would also reiterate that if you are against the current fee proposal, again, Megan did not vote on it. She was just there to preside. Yet we'll have speeches in opposition and support after questions. We have about 2 3/4 of an hour left until the union closes. So that will be plenty of time to hear from everyone here who's interested in speaking on the fee proposal. And then we will have our vote at the end of that. The fee proposal will take a 2/3 vote to pass. So regardless of what happens in speeches, the fee proposal needs a wide support of our current Senate members in order to be presented to the student body president and then to university governance. Lastly, questions to the chair of the Finance Council should be about the fee decisions. They should not be primarily opinion-based, and they should not be combative in any way. With that all being said, we'll resume speaker's time and go to questions. Let's go with...
Hello, I'm Joel Adejola, undergraduate student senator for international students. Thank you for your presentation. I'm curious, besides the actual presentations offered during the deliberations, does the committee also require or receive line-by-line allocations of how the previous year's funding was used, like in a spreadsheet beyond the, okay, this is the percentage, do we get line-by-line allocations, and are those public if so?
So we don't specifically have line by line of the previous year because the previous year is still happening, but we do have simulation files that explain exactly the numbers of what they received in previous years, what they're requesting. Sometimes they have more than one option of what they're requesting and what that would look like going forward and where all of that money would go. That answer it? Was there more to your questions? If there's more to it, I'm happy to answer it. Okay.
The chair of the Community Affairs Council. Emma's got it. We can't throw that one.
Kenna McNally, Chair of Community Affairs Council. So you spoke a little bit about what the Student Senate fee goes to. I was wondering if we have like a percentage allocation or something that goes to how much is spent on travel to go to conferences that are either in Kansas, across the country, just that kind of allocation.
So there are rough numbers when the treasurer presents this before the fee committee, and he might be better to answer this, but I'll give you the information I have, and then if we need to refer to Ethan, that is completely fine. But so in his presentation, he kind of breaks down where that $20 would go, but the actual amount that will be allocated for travel will be decided within block, because that's where Senate's like operational budget comes from. It's decided in blocks, so he can tell you kind of rough numbers of what that would mean based on the amount that's going to each of these different things, but that's more where it's decided. I don't remember what the number was for this past year or what he proposed for the coming year. I think Ethan would probably have that, or someone else knows.
I do have the math for this current fiscal year if you'd like. So the allocation to Student Senate for the travel fund was about 1% of the activity fee revenue. So that was just the activity fee, not the whole fee proposal. Out of the entire fee proposal, it'll probably be less than 1%.
Ethan, do you know what the like number was if it was in the presentation? Yeah. If you have it. If you don't, it's
Yeah, so in my presentation, I have that the travel fund for this upcoming fiscal year would be $16,000. I can answer more questions if anyone has anything.
But so once again, that's not really like, that won't actually be decided until we do this in block. So if you have more questions about that, that'd be more of a block discussion, but it is a good question.
Yeah,
Thank
point
you.
of
Jeff.
information, by the way, this is a proposal, so nothing I have in this presentation will actually hold truth until it's approved. So everything I have here is just a proposal.
Further questions? I see we have a question in the back. Can we please give it to the law senator?
Tanya Singh, Law School Senator. I had a question about the second resolution for the fee proposal regarding requesting the UDK seek alternative forms of funding. My question is, the UDK has a designated person for marketing, and given the small size of the School of Journalism, which is under 1,000 people as of fall 2024, pursuant to their website, how do, and given the fact that the UDK is already engaged in some of these activities pretty vigorously, might I add, how do you expect the UDK to engage in additional fundraising activity per the resolution?
So I think this would be more a question for those who served on this committee. This was not my decision, but it was a discussion that they wanted the UDK to look into other funding. This is not at all binding that they have to or will. It is just a recommendation of this committee, because we get a lot of information during our presentations, but the UDK got 30 minutes to present, and it was great and we learned a lot, but that cannot really give us the full scope of what they do every day, and we can't tell them how they do what they do every day. So we can give them suggestions, and this is what the committee wanted to suggest to them, but that doesn't dictate what they have to do in any capacity.
Question in the back row.
Hi. I'm just wondering, why is the which one is it? The I think community support services fee, it is different between the last version of the bill and the current version of the bill for fiscal year 25. Why? It was I got them right here. Here they are. The community support services fee is listed as $4.18, and then as
That was
58.
an error on our part. We also had the Burnt Nash number added into that as well. And so that caused an issue, and I did not realize that until after the first time fee failed. We fixed it before it was presented 2 weeks ago, I think. But so the $2.58 is correct. And that is how much they received. That one is a hard one because each of those entities within that do not, like, say we want 75 cents from fee. They come to us with actual figures of we need $40,000, and then our budget analyst does the math backwards of what that would relate to in fee dollars.
Any further questions for the finance chair? Yes.
Colton Morgan, Engineering Student Council Representative. With the integration of Edwards campus, are we going to receive a generally larger amount of money? Are we applying the same student fee to them?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
With the integration of the Edwards campus, and now that we're putting fee money towards them, are we also applying our student fee costs to their students and receiving that money as well?
So every student on Lawrence or Edwards campus will pay the student fee. And so all of the allocations we have for fiscal year 25, they all received the same amount that was allocated before this difference was made. And that's why the numbers are different, because more students are paying into this fee. But now we have the Edwards campus line as a part of it. So they're receiving less student fee dollars than they previously did when they had their own fee. But they agreed to this decision last year so that there was integration between the two campuses, if that answers it.
Further questions? Yes, up here. Douglas, yes.
Douglas Jamal, Community Center for the Black Student Union. So I kind of have a two-parter, but we'll get to the first one, and I know that everybody else has questions to ask. So I guess what the important thing that I'm asking is, you mentioned that the fee committee can't really oversee everything that the UDK does. So I wanted to know if there's been any attempt kind of to regulate that itself, so that UDK can kind of elaborate more as to why they are needed to be funded by fee committee. Has there been any type of
So that statement I more meant as a general thing of that's something that has been reiterated to me for the 2 years I was on this, and I reiterated to my committee that it's more of we aren't there every day, and we don't know we don't do their jobs, and we can't pretend like we know how to do their jobs. And that's the reason why we have these presentations. So all these organizations come in and give us the information that they deem vital for our decision making. So like we can't go in and understand how every single thing operates. There's just not enough time in the day to understand how each of these operates in their full capacity. Nor is that really the goal of this. We're trying to make the best decisions on behalf of the students. And so part of that is understanding that the UDK knows how to run the UDK as the unions know how to run the unions. That's not our job. Our job is to look at this whole big picture and figure out how we can best allocate on behalf of the students.
Further questions? Yes.
Thank you. What does the committee expect students without a vehicle or access to one to do on Friday and Saturday nights? According to the resolution, it says that you don't want Safe Ride, or not you, but committee doesn't want Safe Ride to operate those nights, which is when most students would go out.
I cannot speak fully on behalf of why committee members wanted it to be this way, but broadly from the discussions is they wanted Safe Ride to be more utilized as a service to get home from libraries or on-campus activities when it's late at night, rather than for it to be used for other services. I completely understand your point, but that's kind of the rationale behind the decisions. Probably if other committee members speak later, they might have more insight on why they advocated for that.
Further questions? Oh God. All right, all of you have spoken. I think Kenna went first, so we'll go back to Kenna.
Kenna McNally, Chair, Community Affairs Council. So there's been some discussion at previous meetings that if a fee package isn't passed soon, we may lose the right to make the fee package. Can you speak more on that timeline and the such?
So I unfortunately do not have a very clear answer on that. Just when we get to we kind of need this to be passed by a certain point in April for it to go through all the proper bodies before this is presented before the Board of Regents in May. So I can't really say if it's not passed by this date, then we don't get to do this anymore, because that is much higher, way above my pay grade. But it does get more complicated the further this gets pushed on, because when this passes, in like February in a more what we've seen in the past couple years, it has time to go through all the proper offices in the finance office, through the vice provost of finance, through everything that it needs to in admin. But so it just gets a lot more complicated. And speaking with my advisors, they don't know exactly how this process will shake out if this doesn't pass tonight, if it doesn't pass at all before we adjourn for the year. So I don't really have a good answer for you, and I'm really sorry, because I would love to know that as well, but we just don't really know how it's going to shake out specifically. It might just have to be a decision made by admin later on. Yeah.
Dr. Wamelink, do you have any advice you can provide on this? Can we get a microphone back to her, please?
So I think Megan gave you accurate information. The tuition and fee package goes to the Board of Regents in May. It needs to go, the student fee process needs to go through a chancellor approval before it goes to the Board of Regents. If we get to the end of the student senate cycle, and student senate has not passed a fee package, then student senate will essentially lose control over what happens. It would go up to finance to make it a final decision as to what is presented to the Board of Regents.
Thank you. We are out of time for the speaker. Without objection, speaker's time is extended by 5 minutes. All right, hands in the air for questions. Let's go with the law senator. Sure, get a microphone.
The Constitution says, and I'm not roughly quoting, that if we extend the deliberations past the allotted time or the cycles, then the fee review committee can unanimously pass whatever final resolution they come to will be what will be presented to the finance offices. Not that the finance offices will take over the deliberations. So I think what that roughly looks like, if we follow the Constitution, is that if this didn't pass and they said, okay, by Friday we needed to put something through, then the fee review committee, according to the Constitution, could send something through without it going through all the bodies. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, my understanding of the Constitution. Also, I believe what the Dr. Womling, one of our student affairs advisors, was saying was that if Student Senate overall did not have a proposal by the time when KU needs to present, KU is going to have to go forward with their own tuition package because that's their responsibility. But yes, under our Constitution, when we get to the point in the year when there are no more scheduled legislative meetings, which is cycle 13, at that point, if there is not a fee proposal in place, the required student fee review committee, which is the 11 of us or whatever, will be able to unilaterally propose a fee proposal to university administration. So at that point, it would not go through finance or students assembly. Yes. Not this one.
So pretty much everybody on the committee is pretty busy. Last time we had to reschedule one, it took an entire month. So you're talking about assembling the entire fee review committee again during the period where we're starting to go into finals. It's not like a sure thing that we're all 100% going to be able to have our schedules coordinated to take out an entire day. Again, each of these proceedings took 10 hours to do that again and then present again. So that's not a sure thing.
All right. So going back, I think we've handled that point. Now the speaker's time is extended for 5 minutes, and we'll go back to questions for the finance chair. Yes.
Tanya Singh, Senator for the Law School. I was wondering if you knew why the Finance Council is vilifying the usage of Safe Ride for late night transportation from bars when every official KU resource that describes the usage of Safe Ride describes the usage of Safe Ride from bars late nights over the weekend as part of its intended use.
So I think the word vilify there is a little strong. It was more the committee, and this is a committee of 12 people trying to advocate on behalf of all students, but obviously personal opinions are going to get in here. But they saw this more as this is something that should be utilized for academic purposes. And I'm not going to speak on my opinion on any of this, but the committee did decide that they wanted to see these funds more used for Safe Ride towards the Sunday through Thursday services, which are considered the weeknights to Safe Ride.
Further questions? Yes, in the back row. Thank you.
Hello, Evan Norkey, law student. Okay, so when this package was sent back to the fee deliberation people after the first attempt, it was sent back with the clear expression that the people sending it back, the finance committee, wanted a flat fee, like keep the UDK thing flat. Can you give some explanation for why the UDK was still cut, yet other services got a further increase with the second version of the bill beyond what they had in the first one?
Yes, I spoke extensively with my advisors before we went into deliberations again about what level of binding the recommendations sent from Finance Council to the Fee Review Committee are. They are suggestions, and there were decisions made. The deliberations are available on our YouTube channel from the second round of deliberations, and it was a decision to bring up the UDK to $1.50. I again cannot speak on individuals' opinions on why they wanted them moved in that way. But those were the things we were operating under. That the two things that the council wanted was to see the full increase of $10.45 utilized and to bring the UDK to a flat fee. If you watch the deliberations, there were several different rounds of voting on what amount to allocate to the University Daily Kansan. And even with the recommendation from Finance Council, not all of these committee members agreed. And so we deliberated about this for several hours, and this was the conclusion we came to. And this package did pass in Finance Council. So Finance Council sent it back with those recommendations. We did deliberations again. It was brought forth to Finance Council the week before spring break, and this was passed there.
Further questions? Yes. Back to Joel.
Awesome. Given that the resolutions that are pending at the end of the bill are not necessarily enforceable, how does that necessarily mean that the recommendations we have, okay, given that the resolutions are not necessarily enforceable, essentially transport or whoever we assign money to can choose to allocate it as they please? And also, if that does happen, do we have a system in place in Senate to check that against maybe the next fee review committee that is going to sit? In the same way, for resolutions made last year about how money should be spent, does this committee review, okay, these are the resolutions we made, this is how it was actually effected, and this is the decision on how we're carrying that forward? Is there continuity for the resolutions to ensure that it is somewhat or considered? Is that a good enough question?
Okay, so that is a great question. And so to answer the first part, we allocate this money, and so like the $5 to Safe Ride will go to Safe Ride. Our recommendations of within that of saying focusing on Sunday to Thursday services, we cannot enforce in any way. It's purely a recommendation. However, transportation services have always been a great partner to Student Senate and to the student body, and they care very deeply about what students want to see. And they have always taken our recommendations into deep consideration. Not everything we recommend probably is feasible or enforceable, because again, the point I was making about how we aren't in the UDK every day, we don't know how to do their jobs day to day. Same thing with transit. We don't know how to do that, but these, based on what we know as students, these are our recommendations. And for your point about asking future senates and review committees to look at these resolutions, that is something that we have discussed and that I have discussed at length with committee members as a constitutional amendment we want to add to, I think, the budget code, just about the section about the fee review process. So that is a really great question and is something that I am actively working on for future years.
The speaker's time has expired. If there are more questions and we are not wanting to proceed to speeches in opposition. Okay, extension 5 minutes. Objection to extension. Okay. Are we wanting to, you keeping it? Okay. Reason for the objection, if you could. Okay. Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we extend the speaker's time. Yeah. Questions will be to the speakers at that time. You can ask Megan, or sorry, you can ask the finance chair like questions on the side, but not directly in the meeting.
In that case, I withdraw, and in that case, and for a smooth process, I withdraw my extension.
Okay, the motion to extend the speaker's time has been withdrawn. If there are no other motions, we'll go ahead and move into speeches. Yes? Yes, that's good. I was also just going to recognize each of the speakers for 5 minutes speaking time, 3 minutes questions. Do you still want to have your motion, or is that good? Okay, that's my intention as the presiding officer, to recognize each of the speakers for 5 minutes speaking, then 3 minutes questions. In that case, we will move into the speech period. We will hear, everyone, we will hear speeches in opposition, then speeches in favor. We will alternate between them to ensure a balanced flow of debate. Now, I believe a lot of you, if you aren't members, are here specifically about the UDK part. And I am aware that we have one of the advisors to the UDK here who is wanting to give a speech in opposition. So we can hear that one first if you'd like. All right. Nick, are you still wanting to give this speech?
Yes.
All right.
I give a speech. Can I come up there?
Yeah.
I have a couple slides.
Sure. Do you have them like?
Sorry. There's PDF on a drive here.
Yep, it's down here. Oh, this is a USB.
Or you can take it out and use the USB-A.
Find out.
Yep.
It does.
Cans and slides, right there.
Ooh, secrets
No,
on that.
not everybody can do the keep it.
Maybe.
All right, there you go. And it's still plugged in.
All right, great.
Give me a second. We will hear a speech in opposition from an advisor to the University of Daly Kansan. Speaker is recognized for 5 minutes.
My name is Nick Youngman. I am the Director of Strategy for the University of Daly Kansan. And I am here to speak in opposition to the bill. The Kansan asked for flat funding and was cut by almost 60%. And we think that's uncalled for. I'm the Director of Strategy for the Kansan. I'm the only professional employed by the Kansan operation. And I have a strange title. What Director of Strategy should tell you is a couple of things. One is that I'm not directly in charge of the Kansan. We are just like Student Senate in that we are an organization that is led by and managed and run by students with the advice of professionals on the outside. And I am that professional. Director of Strategy, meaning that rather than running the Kansan from day to day, because that's what students do, I'm in charge of trying to figure out how to make the Kansan work over time. I've been doing this for 3 years. I got here in August of 2022. When I got here, the Kansan had a completely volunteer staff. If you were here in 2022 and remember reading anything in the Kansan, you probably don't remember reading anything in the Kansan because there wasn't a lot of content to the Kansan in 2022. With a volunteer staff, very little gets done. And it's a matter of what volunteers are willing to do and what volunteers have time to do. And journalism is hard. Journalism takes time. Journalism takes a lot of effort. It's complicated what Student Senate does. And if the Kansan is to cover Student Senate, it requires a couple of people from our staff to attend a lot of meetings that you all are attending to. I understand that, but it's all of you doing this work together. And it's a couple of people at the Kansan, right? They've got to figure out how Student Senate works. They've got to do the interviews to get the story. And all of that is work and it takes time. And that's work that wasn't happening when the Kansan had an entirely volunteer staff. One of the first things I identified when I came to the Kansan in 2022 was that we didn't have a robust audience. We just didn't have students reading the Kansan like we should. And that made sense because the Kansan didn't have a lot of relevant content at the time. We realized pretty quickly that I realized pretty quickly that the all volunteer staff for the Kansan was not going to work. And so we came to Student Senate in the 2022-23 fee funding process, and we said, please increase our allocation so that we can start paying students. We didn't win that argument in the first year, but we felt like we had some sympathy and we gained some traction. We came back to the fee committee a year ago and asked for the same thing, an increase of our fee from $1.80 to $3.64. And the fee committee agreed to make that allocation to us for this current fiscal year. We have only been operating with those funds since August. And so that staff that we're paying with that money has only been doing that work since August. And so we're still figuring out at the Kansan how to make that staff work perfectly, how to make sure that all the bases are covered, and to make sure that the students who read the Kansan are getting what they need from the Kansan, and that we're doing the journalism that students need. And I think we've seen a lot of fruits of that effort. I think we made a great case to the fee committee several weeks ago in saying how much our traffic had increased, how much more content there was on the Kansan this year than there has been in recent years. We're making a lot of progress. The Kansan is getting back to being the award-winning student newspaper it has been for most of its history. And that's thanks to the investment that you all are making in the Kansan right now. Now, it's shocking to us to come into this process, having won the argument a year ago to increase our funding and make the Kansan a lot better. We're 4 months into that progress at the Kansan, having that paid staff, trying to figure out what they should do and how they should do it. And in the current fee process, we've had the rug, it feels like we've had the rug ripped out from underneath us with initially a proposal of an 80% cut to the Kansan down to 75 cents from $3.64. And in the revised process, after Finance Council rejected, we've come back with $1.50, which is still less than we were getting when I got here 3 years ago at $1.80. That $1.80 pays for some baseline funding for the Kansan. The content management system on which the Kansan runs costs several $100s a month. I'm sorry? Thank you. But the main thing that you're paying for with this fee is the paid staff of the Kansan, the people who are responsible for making certain that things are covered, making sure that student senate is covered, making sure that students are understanding of the processes that affect their lives. This is a shared governance process, right? You all are working for students. But if students don't know what you're doing, then what you're doing isn't to the maximum effect it could be. We're here to help shine a light on this process, to help students participate in this self-governance process. And my contention is that's impossible unless we're paying students to run the Kansan. And that's what we're asking for right here. My time is out, but I can answer more questions and I have more to say.
We'll have 3 minutes of questions for our speaker. Can we please get the law senator?
Which one? There's two.
Sam, yes, sorry.
Simply, Chris, can we motion to extend positive speech by any minutes?
Yeah, do you want to do questions first, though? Or?
I'd prefer to motion to give him a more complete speech and then more questions. in my opinion.
Okay, 5 minutes.
I think that's appropriate.
The motion for 5-minute extension. Second, is there any objection to extending the speaker's time by 5 minutes? All right.
I don't think I'll use 5 minutes. I want to answer the question of why doesn't the School of Journalism just take this over? You all shouldn't trust the School of Journalism to do it. The School of Journalism has been the steward of the Kansan for its entire existence. When I got here 3 years ago with this Kansan having no paid staff, doing very little news, not covering student senate at all, that was with the School of Journalism in charge of things, okay? The School of Journalism is going to use the Kansan for its own purposes, and you all have a neat opportunity here to keep control of the Kansan, to give the Kansan some direction, and to make sure the Kansan is owned by students and not by the School of Journalism and not by the administration. The Kansan is yours. It belongs to you, and we're asking you to fund it. The School of Journalism is not a bystander in this process by any means. The School of Journalism pays a big chunk of my salary. The School of Journalism pays for most of our photography equipment. The School of Journalism pays for all of the travel that is paid for students. For example, going to the NCAA tournament. The School of Journalism spent $11,000 sending 6 students, not just the Kansan students, but some other journalism students as well, to Providence for the NCAA tournament. The School of Journalism provides us with free office space and free office supplies, and they furnished our offices. So the School of Journalism is a partner with you all in this, but I wouldn't leave this to the School of Journalism. I think that's a mistake on your part.
All right. So we had 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. I'll go ahead and add on the 3 minutes for questions. Are there any questions for the speaker? Yes, Vice Chair of the Finance Council.
Hey again, Nick. See
Hi,
you
John.
every
Hi,
year.
Farzad.
Where would you have the money come from? Which other fee institution would you want to take the funding from and give to the UDK so you can have your flat rate? And
Well, I
how
think
can you
that
justify
I reject the premise of that question, Farzad, because you've increased the amount of the fee and we asked for flat funding. So it's not a question of who do we cut, it's who do we not increase. And
who would you not increase?
Well, you know what? You could shave 5 cents off of everybody and we'd be in a pretty good shape, actually.
All right, further questions? Yes, Chair of the Community Affairs Council.
If you have the numbers with you, could you share with all of us how much readership of the Kansan has increased since you've received this funding increase?
You know, those numbers are not in my head. Courtney, do you have those numbers in your head? Courtney is the editor-in-chief of the Kansan.
Between a 75 and 90% increase. A 75 to 95% increase in views per month. So last month we did 160,000 views, which is double what we did February a year ago. And we're about 135, 160 every month since August, where we were reaching for 80K a year ago.
And I'd simply challenge you to do a cursory look at the Kansan's Instagram, the Kansan's Facebook, the Kansan's Twitter. There is much more content there this year than there has been in past years. Our student engagement is demonstrably better.
Further questions? Yes, Tanya.
Tanya Singh, Law School Senator. I know that the UDK specifically has persons to report on university administration, as well as the activities of Student Senate to maintain transparency. Could you tell me more about how funding cuts would impact what students know about the way their university functions?
Yeah, so the coverage of Student Senate, of the university administration, those are the two beats. Well, we actually have, I think now up to 4 content producers who are on the paid staff. Most of the paid staff is editors. I can explain why that makes sense if someone wants to know. But you know, having those people paid is essential because it takes a long time to figure out what's going on in Strong Hall. It takes a long time to figure out how you always work. What your organization is complex. And to attend the meetings and to get people on the phone and to do the reporting, that takes hours and hours of people's time every day. And so we're compensating students for that time. They wouldn't have the time to spend with us if we didn't compensate them for us. I think almost every member of the Kansan staff, even those that we're paying, have another job that they're working. And they're working in that job to make ends meet. And if they're spending time with the Kansan and we're not paying them, then they're not making ends meet. And that's the basic formula as far as I can see it. And especially for covering university administration and student senate, those are not sexy beats. Volunteers aren't leaping, out of their chairs to cover student senate. But it has to be done. It needs to be done. It's an important part of our democratic process to have independent journalistic observers communicating with the public just as you're communicating with the public. It happens in tandem. And it's real world, and that's what we're trying to do.
Further questions? Yes, in the back here.
If you know, what is the average compensation for a student employee per hour?
We're paying $12.50 an hour, and the schedules range from 10 hours a week to 20 hours a week. So you can do that math. I can't do it in my head.
Further questions? Douglas.
I would actually request that you go to some senators that haven't been able to speak at least once.
Gotcha. Yes. Up here then, Emma, if you could. Could you raise your hand, please?
Sophie Tarian, grad student senator. Thank you for sharing this. It's really illuminating. My question for you is, in your investigation, did you find any peer universities that were funded less than the Kansan?
Yeah, so let me explain this chart here. So these are universities that we would consider peers to us. They are similar in size, they're state universities, and they all share the characteristic that Kansan has, where the Kansan is not independent of the university. The Kansan is operating as a department of the university, and that's how most of these student news organizations operate as well. But as you can see, student funding for student media is standard. You know, these are the people that we think we're competing with. These are the student media organizations that win the awards. I worked at OU Daily. That's my previous job before I came here to KU. We had similar challenges there of trying to figure out this funding problem. We made a partnership with student government at OU to get the significant amount of funding, which makes OU Daily one of the best student newspapers in the country. And that's what we want for the Kansan. But there are student newspapers that aren't funded at all by student fees. Those tend to be independent of their universities. They're formulated as nonprofit organizations. That's something we think about at the Kansan. It would require a substantial upfront investment for us to create that standalone organization. The other problem the Kansan has, and this has come up from time to time, is why don't donors fund it? Our alumni have been very vocal in being opposed to the fee cut that you're proposing. And the fact is that alumni do fund us. You know, that's where some of the money comes from that the journalism school is putting toward us. We would have to have a divorce with journalism over donors. You know, the donors to the journalism school think they're donating to the Kansan. The Kansan gets some of that money, obviously not all of it. The School of Journalism is a lot bigger than the Kansan. And our donors are their donors, you know, and so if we were to separate from the School of Journalism, we'd have to have some kind of donor divorce. And I hate to think about what that looks like.
Sure.
What about other universities that are funded on? Clarifying on the question, other universities that are funded on the annual student fee, but the student fee is like the total sum is less than the Kansan receives. Did you find any like that?
No, did not. The Kansan's funding is an outlier.
Okay, so the lowest that you found that was funded by student fees.
Yeah. The other slide I have here, I want to just point out here too. There's been some talk among you all about, you know, holding the student fee flat as possible, not increasing it any more than we absolutely have to. There's a significant fee burden on students. This is just FYI for you. I don't have a lot to say about this other than KU does not have an outrageous fee burden, even compared to other state universities.
Further questions? Yes.
Thank you, Kate Ecker. I'm a senator for the college. So you're telling us that we shouldn't trust the School of Journalism to fund the UDK because they are going to use it for their own purposes. But in a world where we are trusted, you're subject to the whims of our politics. And I would venture to say, or I'm actually sure that you guys have a financial incentive to report on us favorably. So I'm wondering if this is a worthwhile trade-off. And if so, and I don't mean this in an accusatory way, how do you justify not being independent journalism?
We think we are independent even when we're being funded by students. And I think all of these news organizations too would say the same thing. You all are not a monolith. We've learned that in this process. You all have a variety of different opinions. Some of you share our opinions and some of you do not share our opinions. You know, it's not, I think you all are wise enough to realize that you're funding independent journalism that's going to be a critic of you, but that critique makes you stronger. That critique is echoing what students are saying. It's what students are thinking. It helps you all connect with the student body. And I think it just makes all of us stronger. It is, but you are correct. There is an ethical thing right there. And in a perfect world, our funding would not be subject to a political process. But if funding from students requires us to go through a political process, then we'll go through that process.
The speaker's time has expired. If we want to ask more questions, I'll hear an extension of time. Otherwise, we will move on to another speech. Extension 5 minutes. Second from the Public Relations Director. Are there any objections to extending the speaker's time by 5 minutes? Hearing none, we will continue with questions. Hands up in the air. Hands up in the air, yes.
Hi, Mia, Senator for Student Veterans of America. You mentioned that the School of Journalism provides you with free offices or workspaces. I believe a major argument that your team has presented to us in the past for your need for fee funding is that you need to pay for space in the journalism school. So can you just clarify?
I don't know that we've ever argued that because we don't pay for space. So if someone was arguing that, they were mistaken.
Further questions? Yes, Douglas.
Douglas Jamal, Community Senator for the Black Student Union. I just want to say thank you for what you've done. The Kansan's done amazing, incredible work this year. I've not seen it. I've been here since you've been here, and I've seen the stuff that you've done. I do want to say that I'm a little shocked that you mentioned the journalism school, kind of us not being able to rely on them, UDK, just because that's kind of what I would expect them to do. But you did mention that they are paying for a lot of different things, not room in the space, but they're furnishing and stuff like that. And I do want to say that I know that the UDK, there will be a question. UDK does understand that student senate is in our deficit right now, and you'd mentioned how senate is kind of getting an increase kind of for that. So I want to ask, because we've asked other organizations, has there been any type of method of self-sustainment that UDK has participated in? Because I know that we're paying staff, so I'm kind of wondering, are we doing fundraisings? Are we doing any type of ways for our, some type of self-sustainment there, because Senate is kind of on that deficit?
We absolutely are doing fundraising. This funding fight with you all has caused some donors to come out of the woodwork. I think a dozen of them. We signed a bunch of thank you notes yesterday. But those funds flow to the School of Journalism. All of the endowment funds are under the control of the School of Journalism. They benefit us, but indirectly. So they're not operating funds as far as we're concerned. What was the rest of your question? I'm sorry.
Just has there been some type of self-sustainment? Because,
Yeah, so we're working on that, and that's part of what we're asking you to invest in. I would love the advertising requires an audience. What we're selling to advertisers is an audience, and if the Kansan doesn't have a consistent audience, especially not a consistent student audience, then we can't sell advertising, or not very much of it, and not for very much money. The stronger our audience gets, the stronger our advertising business gets. We're doing a better advertising business this year than we did last year. Where are we, Gracie? Gracie is our business manager.
My name is Gracie Wheeler. I'm the business manager of the University Daily Kansan. So this is my third year on the Kansan, first year paid staff, obviously. But compared to the past 2 years that I have been a student on the sales team, we have never before hit our funding goal. We've always been under our budget. Our budget for advertising is around $55,000 a year. So that covers every single print thing that we publish. That covers other small projects that pop up along the year and things like that. So we've never hit that $55,000 goal. Having a paid staff on our business team, which is only our sales manager is paid. Myself, my sales manager, and my marketing manager. None of our sales people are paid. That's just a sales manager. But him and his little cohort, they have a 5% commission. Just side note. They have already hit that goal for the year. So we are seeing our business already increase, our ability to communicate with our community and get advertisers in our community increase on these paid staff.
And our ability to do that is based on our ability to build audience this year, which is based on our ability to pay a staff. And I would like to come back. Hopefully I can come back in 2 or 3 years and I can say, you know what? You all did such an awesome job of investing in the Kansan and helping us build up our paid staff that we now have an advertising business that pays our student wages. That's possible. I don't predict it necessarily because that's not the way the world is going. The Kansan is not unique in its funding problems. You all know this. Newspapers have disappeared. The Kansas City Star used to have 500,000 subscribers. I think now it has tens of thousands, if that many. And all the information they produce is locked behind a paywall. So if you're not a subscriber to the Star, you can't even see it. Those businesses are cannibalizing themselves, and here we are building audience because you've made a little bit of an investment in us, and that's causing us to create revenue. Hopefully that helps us to create a self-sustaining business someday. Yes.
I would also like to note that in the past, we had an award-winning advertising team that specifically received awards for their ability to fund the Kansan. So we know it's possible. We cannot get there though, unless we have the audience built from having a paid staff.
All right, everyone with questions, hands up, hands up, hands up. We've heard from all of you. I think Farzad went first, so we'll go back to Farzad.
Manisha.
No? Oh, I'm so sorry, Manisha.
Thank you. Was the award-winning staff with or without Senate funding, like that you had talked about?
As far as we can tell, this Kansan has been continuously funded by student fees. I don't know that there's any gap where the Kansan was not funded by student fees, but I don't have that complete history.
Further questions? Hands up, hands up, hands up. Yes. Sure.
So I have always been told that the Kansan only ever started receiving student fee dollars in 2011.
We know that's not true.
Okay. Well, then what alternative date can you provide us?
I just don't have that history today. We have alumni from the 70s who know that we were funded by student fees then. There's been student fee funding in the recent history that I have access to, and that's what I know.
All right, further questions? I believe we have one from Sam.
Now, you had stated that the 364 came into effect in August.
Yes.
And
well,
sorry?
Well, technically in July with the beginning of the fiscal year, but we started spending that money in August. Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah.
July to August. But either way, almost doubling of your exposure in such a small period. And I'd assume that it is not likely that's it, it's doubled and it's done. Do you expect more growth with if we were able to sustain something similar? Do you expect more growth than that once doubling?
I guess I'm sorry. I'm not sure I completely understand the question.
My apologies. Let me be a little bit more precise. It's been a long day. What I'm trying to say is you had an increased funding, and with that, this remarkable growth. Now, if you just maintain that funding, are you expecting that growth to continue?
Yeah, because I mean, one of the critiques you all have of us, and it's a valid critique, 100% valid, that the average student is not engaged with the Kansan. We know that. The average student is not engaged with the Kansan, not on a regular basis, and our goal is to fix that. And so that's the growth we're seeing, we're hoping for, is we want every student to be engaged with the Kansan at some level. And that requires us to keep building what we're doing. But if we can achieve that, if we can get every student engaged with the Kansan, that could be a really exciting advertising business. Does that answer your question?
I'm so sorry. You have like 4 people in front of you. I couldn't see that. Speaker's time has yet again expired. Is there another motion to extend time, or are we wanting to hear from other speakers?
I'm going to motion to hear from other speakers.
Is there a motion to extend time? Move to extend time by 5 minutes. Second, is there an objection? All right, hearing no extension, speaker's time is extended. The motion to hear from other speakers was out of order because that is the normal course of business. Speaker's time is extended by another 5 minutes. We will resume questions. All right, hands in the air, please. Hands in the air, hands in the air, hands in the air. Who hasn't spoken in a while? Was it Farzad? Farzad not spoken in a while?
I think it's me.
Okay, let's go to Sophie.
Hi again, Sophie Tarian, graduate student senator. So I know the Collegian at K-State, I think they still print a physical paper, right? Do you know how many of the other schools on this list print and how much that causes the difference we see in funding?
That's an excellent question.
Like I think
most of them do
Colorado-
print. So
Colorado
that
does.
probably is that is probably one of the explanations for this difference is that, but none of these student news organizations are printing anything they can't pay for with advertising, pretty much, is my guess. But I think you're right that most of these are still printing something.
And do you know the average cost per year of printing a paper?
Yeah, you know what? We print 3,500 copies on average for every basketball game. We print 1 issue for 2 games. So that's about 7,000 papers. It costs us about $800 to print that.
Further
that's-
questions?
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's you have to do that math.
Further questions, Mia?
So, considering this question of independence that we've been discussing and where the best place to receive funding is, considering we want our journalism to be the most unbiased and diverse source that encompasses every viewpoint and tries to find the factual truth of the matter, do you feel that the way the University Daily Kansan handled the difficulty around this fee proposal maintained that same standard of journalistic integrity? And if not, do you really think that fee is the best place to fund the Kansan, considering the tense relationship we've seen between these two entities this year and in past cycles?
If we hadn't been cut by 80%, we wouldn't have been complaining. I mean, 80% is kind of a message, right? And so we responded. This is a process, where it is a public process, and we have rights within that public process, and we feel like we're exercising those rights. I'll also acknowledge to you that Kansan is not an unbiased reporter on its own existence. The Kansan wants to be able to pay its staff, and we have that bias. I will just declare that.
Further
We're gonna
questions?
fight for that. Yep.
Farzad.
So during the fee committee meetings that you had, the number that was given was a 29,000 viewer increase or visitor increase to the website. This was in February. Does that mean the bulk of the traffic has come ever since viewers have been told that the UDK is ostensibly shutting down in terms of funding?
Well, I wish I had these numbers memorized for you, Farzad, and I just don't. So I don't know where that gap is. I know we've grown significantly. Courtney has a computer; she can start doing some looking up for us.
Yeah, because the number that we were given was 29,000 in February and in March. So that is my assumption that the growth would then come in there.
Yeah, I mean, we have had significant audience in recent weeks, so I mean there is that. But we may be misstating some numbers here. The bottom line is that we've seen significant growth.
Okay. I saw a question over here. Did you still have one?
Hi, my name is Michelle Blackburn, and I'm a student senator here. And I was just curious. So you said it costs about $800 to print newspapers for the basketball games.
Yep.
Does athletics reimburse you in any way? And
That's a
if-
money-making deal. We make money on the basketball issues.
Okay.
That's one of the ways we're generating advertising. I think we made what $20,000 in advertising on the basketball issues this year. That's less than we've made in the past. The further we get away from that championship in 2022 or 2021, the less money we're going to make on it.
Yeah. Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions? Hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up. Okay, back row. I'm sorry.
Hello. So throughout this process, in a couple of the meetings, there's been some rhetoric that seems to position funding the Kansan in opposition to like funding mental health services and suicide prevention. What do you say in response to that?
I'm not here to take money away from anyone else. We asked for flat fee, and the fee is rising. The overall fee is rising. So I feel like a flat fee is reasonable. We'll take a haircut like anybody else is taking a haircut if that's what's going on. But we feel like the Kansan has been singled out for particular. The Kansan's been singled out to take this fee, whatever it is you're doing, you know, to change where the fees are going. It feels like the Kansan's taking the entire, or almost the Kansan and Safe Ride are taking the brunt of that. I'm sorry, what was your question? I'm not sure I answered your question. Okay,
Joel.
Joel, international undergrad. Who else or what are the buddy on campus reports on KU administration?
Obviously, the journal world does, and the Lawrence Times. You know, this is a kind of a media-saturated environment here in Lawrence and Greater Kansas City. But none of those people are doing it from a student perspective. None of them have students or very many students in their audience. We're the only organization that's doing this reporting for the KU student audience. And we use that frame for everything we do. And we're going to get better at that as we keep going and making investments in the CADE staff.
Speaker's time has once again expired. Is there a motion to extend time, or would we like to hear from other speakers? Is there any motion? Okay, if there's no motions to extend time, thank you very much.
Hey, Chris, I'm not a PC person. Could you do I need to eject my drive?
Yeah, actually, do you mind if I hold on to it?
You leave it there? Okay.
Files?
I'll just
Yeah, I'll put it up on Teams for us so everyone else can see it, and then I'll give it back to you by the end of the meeting. Brendan, did you say you wanted to give a speech in favor?
I will not be making a speech. I am making a motion for someone else.
Just move on to negative speech.
Okay, we don't need motions, just to go to the next order of business. Everyone, thank you. We have heard a speech in opposition. Is there a speech in favor? Is there a speech in favor? Yes. You will have 5 minutes, then 3 for questions. Do you have anything to pull up, or are you just gonna keep that?
Let's go talk.
Sweet.
Hi guys, my name's Mia. I'm a representative from Student Veterans of America, and I was a elected member of Fee Review Committee from the Community Affairs Board. It was an honor to serve in this position despite some of the difficulties we've been having. So I'm here to just touch on some of the major burning questions from the perspective of somebody who voted on some of the unpopular issues here today. So one of the major things I want to share, starting with Safe Ride, is that the major thing that made me personally think that the Safe Ride services did not deserve the fee that they have at the moment is they have a 50% cancellation. And I was just looking at their numbers, and that means they get about, at least last year, they got about 28,000 requests for rides, and only 14,000 of those were fulfilled. So considering the stewardship aspect, we felt that channeling more money into a failing service was not the best way to use our funds. So that's why it was reallocated more towards busing, which is something that all students use, a lot of students use on a daily basis, regardless of your after-school activities. So that's why we kind of moved that funding for now. But we do have a safety board and a transit board, and I believe a lot of our student senators are committed to working with transit to make this a lot more effective for students, and possibly, you know, we want to keep it as a weeknight program for those students studying on campus to keep it efficient. But, you know, we would love it if we could, you know, further this program once we figure out how to make it work efficiently. On the point of the UDK, my biggest thing that convinced me initially that they didn't deserve that level of funding within fee is because if you look at all of the other entities that this fee funds, it's more infrastructural things. Like we're looking at transit, we're looking at the union buildings, we're looking at rec services, stuff that is just day-to-day operational maintenance of campus that students need to use every single day. And I know you could argue that like Senate is the other entity, the Student Senate activity fee is the other entity within this block that is more of a student, you know, led organization. But this is just, as Megan explained, it's the Student Senate activity fee, which is basically allocating a portion of that student fee, which we use on Wednesday nights to then repay other student clubs. So it's nothing that goes to us. So it just struck me very poorly that the UDK was on this very like infrastructure funding line. And so that's why, at least I personally felt, and there were a lot of arguments within the committee, that we would cut them and promote that they apply for block and line funding from Senate later on to keep it, you know, still student funded, but without this kind of contention of every year having the student fee committee. And then if we decrease them a little bit, they'll promote, you know, I will say majority negative articles. And another thing I'll say is that I personally put on that big Teams meeting we had on that snow day when the package failed initially, I put in the chat that I was a senator. I went to every single meeting, voted on the fees, you know, had opinions that they didn't necessarily support. And I provided my email and my name. Not a single journalist reached out to me with a question. So I think that that tells you a little bit of how they are promoting this issue, their side of the issue, and not actually doing their due diligence of trying to explain to students the rationale of why it was cut, the rationale of why they believe it shouldn't be cut, and letting students actually make a decision based on their own values and beliefs of where their money is going. Instead, I believe there's a lot of fear-mongering around there not being an existence of a student newspaper, which is not at all what we wanted to do. And also, I think they do have a lot of other, you know, funding that they can pull from, which we've talked about. And so, yeah, I just think it wasn't presented very well. And a big portion of this funding increase, if we look at it historically, they were receiving closer to $2. So they were increased to that $3.50 or so level. And that was for a pay structure that only pays about 12 people. To me, that just did not seem fair considering how much money we're giving this organization and how much other organizations are struggling just to maintain operational levels. A lot of this, what we're talking about, seeing that a lot of the other organizations like Transit received an increase, this is an inflationary increase. Transit needed, just for the buses, $15 to maintain their current levels of operations. So we needed to cut other entities to give more, yes, to some entities, but that is just to maintain their current levels based on inflation and what they'll need for next year. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
questions for the speaker? Yes, up here.
Why do you think students are canceling so much on the Safe Ride?
Well, I just think it's not a very efficient system. Their average wait time was, I want to say 11 minutes, which I know is not long, but their higher wait times were up towards 40 minutes. And I think a lot of the time students who are out are just kind of trying to find the quickest option for a way home. And often students may end up double booking with an Uber and just canceling their Safe Ride when that Uber pulls up. So that's not what we want to be seeing from students. And also, I'll give you my personal story with Safe Ride. I used it late last spring. And I was out late on Mass Street with another girl my age, and we just felt uncomfortable remaining in the same position. The way you use Safe Ride is you have to pick a pickup location. So if the bar closes and you leave, you're out on the street and you have to stay in one place. As young women, we didn't feel comfortable doing that, and we would rather start moving home rather than staying in one place. And we weren't able to communicate with our Safe Ride, so they passed us, and we had to request again, and they circled around and got us. So there's just a lot of structural ways Safe Ride works that isn't great for the way our students want to use it. And that's something that we definitely want to continue to work with transit on.
All right, hands up, questions. Yes, just pass it down that row. There's a question at the end of the row. Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, you said you're upset at the UDK for certain things that they publish, certain views they publish. So as an elected official, you then want to just cut their funding.
No. So that was something I was already in favor of cutting the UDK funding more so than it's cut now at the time of the initial fee review before they had published anything. I'm just simply saying that as a rebuttal to arguments that they provide independent student-funded, student-based journalism, my rebuttal to that is they have not been doing a great job of that in relation to the fee review committee because they have a personal stake in it. And so they didn't do a great job representing Senate or any positive opinions for this, package. And so that is my personal complaint with arguments that we've seen. I don't believe that, we should cut opinions we don't agree with.
All right, we had a question further down the row.
Hi, I'm Valerie Boyd. I'm a first-year student senator. I was just a little bit confused if your reasoning for why Safe Ride should be cut is because they're not fast enough getting to people and you think that's why people are canceling. Wouldn't having more money allocated to Safe Ride help them faster work and help those cancellations not happen so that it could be more productive for the unsafe, for the students on campus to make it more safe?
No, I definitely see what you're saying. And that's, I think, one of the biggest issues with fee review and something that we do in Senate with dealing with so much money is we think there is a correlation with putting more money into something makes it better. I think my argument, especially with being able to see a lot of the presentations we've been given, is that so many of these entities come to us asking for just a little bit more money each year, but they don't actually use that to improve how they are operating. They just use it to expand slightly how what they are doing currently. So if there's a big problem with Safe Ride, providing them with more funds doesn't necessarily fix their operational issues. It would just be spending more money on maybe another driver or two to drive around and miss people, if that makes sense. And another problem with that is that in 2018, they got a new fleet of vehicles, which were electric vehicles. They were 2018 made, so they were really new. And this fleet has been having a lot of issues. They've had to take them off the roads because there were serious safety problems with these vehicles. So that just spoke to us again of even if they had a lot of money to invest in more vehicles, to invest in whatever it is, they're still not necessarily using that responsibly. Why did they get new electric cars for this from 2018? It just doesn't make sense. And so I think we need to work on operations.
Speaker's time has expired. If there is not a motion to extend time, we will proceed to the next speech, which will be a speech in opposition. I'm seeing hands up. Are these motions to extend time? Sophie, motion to extend time, how much? Okay, motion to extend time by 7 minutes. Second from Joel. Is there any objection to extending speaker's time by 7 minutes? Hearing none, it is extended, and we will proceed with questions. Hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up. I think we have some questions in the... Oh, yeah, Mafe. We haven't heard from Mafe yet.
Yes, I want to touch on your argument that all this money pays for only 12 people.
Why does it matter? I mean, we've heard how much it increased the readership, how much it increased the number of material. I mean, I'm not sure how much psychologists, CAPS, for example, employs. They don't think they employ hundreds of people. So, like, cutting 12 psychologists from CAPS would be devastating. And the same logic probably applies here. Why does it matter for how much people it pays when it matters for how much material and content and readership it pays?
For sure. I can't honestly think of, except for maybe a handful of like student hourlies at some of these, institutional places, who just, maintain offices, answer student questions, stuff like that. That students who receive their paycheck from student fee. Like, this is super unique, at least in my view, of UDK and this new pay structure that they've implemented is that their entire salaries are getting paid through student fee. That just did not strike me as fair, that every student is paying a little bit to a handful of students who are participating in a service that students kind of can optionally partake in. And meanwhile, while the rest of them are very like infrastructure, you don't know if you're going to need legal services until you need it. Like, you don't know if you're going to need CAPS until you need it. And I just don't see the newspaper on that same level, especially because it does exist without student fee. I think there's some debate around when it became a fee entity. We're not sure on that apparently, but I don't think it's comparable.
Oh, God. Okay, we'll hear from Community Affairs.
Yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Ken McNally, Chair of Community Affairs. The entire Student Senate executive staff that is paid, as well as all legislative members that are paid using student fees
Through activity or
through the Student Senate activity fee.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yes, we're all paid $10.50 an hour for a varying number of hours per week.
How many people are on exec?
There is 9-member executive staff.
Some of them are paid that. Not everybody.
And these two on the legislative side, as well as chairs, vice chairs, and secretaries are paid a semester stipend.
The stipend is $250 a semester.
And then, if I can bring it to the chair's attention, there's a point of information here.
Yeah.
Tanya Singh, law school senator. Point of information, I also wanted to add that the rec center also hires student employees who are paid using the operations fee for the rec center, as far as I'm aware, which comes from the student activity fee, or whatever student fee is paid.
Thank you. Okay, are there any more points of information before we get back into? Yes.
Yeah, so I chair Watkins Advisory Board, and we recently started a poll structure where every single time you go to Watkins, even if you sprain your ankle, you have to do a mental health screening. And we are in the midst of a mental health crisis with 13.
Is this a point of information for this speaker, or is it something that can be made in a speech later?
Yeah, it's a point of information regarding the need for
Okay.
mental health services, because there are 1,300 students that have responded in the last semester that they're suicidal.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Yeah, I see a lot in the second to last row on the left side, my side.
Hello, Gracie Wheeler, business manager for the Kansan. I have a point of information / question. Is that okay? It's a quick point of information.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about the bias of covering our own organization. Like Nick said, there is an inherent bias there, but our staff has worked with other news outlets in the area to make sure that this is covered as accurately as possible. We're journalists, we respect journalistic processes. So that's kind of my point of information. My question is that I've heard this block and line funding a couple different times from a couple different people on Senate. It's been recommended, but it's unclear to me if that's possible for us to be on block and line funding because we are also aligned on this student fee, if that makes sense.
I'll pause speaker's time and recognize the chair of the Finance Council for that one.
So if the UDK at some point were to no longer be on student fee, then they could move on to block or line. That would not work for this year. Those applications have already closed, but in future years, that would be a possibility. You guys would have the ability to apply for block and or line funding.
Clarification for the audience. We're deciding right now the required student fee proposal. The amount of funding that we decide here will flow forward into block funding. which is used to fund certain campus organizations and a few student programs like Student Senate, actual administration, as well as the Lead Center, Spencer Museum of Art, so on. We're going past. And then line item funding, which is reserved funding for student organizations for next year. So we aren't deciding those today, but just information on what that funding is. And then further questions? Yes, end of the row.
Hi, I'm Eric. I am with the UDK. My question also relates to Safe Ride. So they asked for a $5 increase, and then obviously we're dropped down to $5. I think that's similar to the decrease in the UDK funding in the sense that you say there's problems with Safe Ride, and I agree, I don't doubt that. But rather than give them the funding or resources to improve, we're just getting rid of that. And obviously there's no room for improvement if that money's taken away. So it almost seems like there's not, I guess, the opportunity for them to improve if we're just saying, okay, it doesn't work now, let's just make it, even less efficient, if that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying, and I'll just respond to like the idea that this is a permanent change. I think right now what we're talking about is that since we have so little additional funds to spend and we're really trying to stretch what we can across so many organizations, especially we're looking at buses, that was kind of priority number one is funding these buses, which we're asking for $15 when we could only allocate an extra 10. And so it's not about, taking away from a service that isn't working. It's about not spending money inefficiently where it has not been, used with good sense, I think. And so it's about trying to make good fiscal decisions for this next upcoming year, considering Senate's in a budget. We're all seeing a lot of financial difficulties. And I think the fact is that Senate wants to work with transportation. Senate wants to work with the UDK. We want to talk about how to actually make things better. And that's why it's so hard to work through a program like this, because, you put Senate in a room to make some ideas, and it's really hard to agree with and work with the other entities. So that's why we come, with this package and try to ask you for understanding of what we've worked out with the numbers and, hope that we can work as Senate, as student body with all the other groups that we work with UDK, with transit, to actually improve the function of these programs without just blindly pouring more money into them, hoping they'll get better.
The speaker's time has expired. If there is not a motion to extend time, we will proceed to the next speech. Joel, do you have a motion? Motion to extend time by 5 minutes. Second from objection to the extension of time. Are you withdrawing? Okay. We can't do a voice vote, can we? It has to be. Wait, hold on. Is there any objection to doing a vote by show of hands on this issue?
No, because we need to make sure they're all.
Douglas, objection?
If there's like.
Objection to that.
Yeah, okay. Okay, there's been a motion, there's been an objection. What was the motion? What was the time extension by? 5 minutes? Okay, great. We will get a motion to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes posted into the Assembly voting channel. By the way, all of the replacement senators have already been added to this channel. If you are a voting member and you do not have access to the channel, please come up to the front during the poll and we will get that sorted for you. The poll is posted in the Assembly voting channel now. Please cast your votes. This will be a 1 minute vote. I want it.
Thank you so much for It's gonna bite us in the butt.
Right.
Thank you. I'm trying. Thank you. Hey, Chris. If we get an extension, can I just respond to the points of information really quickly?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, that's a great.
Okay, thanks. Good. Actually, a lot better than I thought I would. I just need to reframe my argument about the 12 people because my biggest problem was that they just, getting paid. Because my biggest problem with them was they came in to tell us that they needed more diversity on their staff, and that's what the pay structure is going for. And it's only paying people who would arguably be doing it anyways.
Is it closed? I got it. Order. The poll is now closed. On the question of extending the speaker's time by 5 minutes, in favor 14, opposed 39, abstaining 3. Accordingly, the motion is lost. We will proceed to our next speech, which will be a speech in opposition. Now, hands up if you have a speech in opposition. Hands up. All right. I do think we have a speech from the editor-in-chief of the UDK. If there's anyone who wants to talk about Safe Ride, I'll recognize that. Otherwise, I think we're wanting to hear from the UDK editor-in-chief.
Safe Ride?
Yeah? Okay. I'll recognize Joel. 5 minutes for speech, 3 minutes for questions for talking about Safe Ride.
They're like the palace guards.
Hello, everyone. Wait, quick question. Can you guys hear me without me leaning in?
No.
Oh, I have to lean in. Hello, everyone. My name is Joel. Hello, everyone. My name is Joel. I am a student studying electrical engineering and philosophy here at KU. I'm going to just give some brief points or cases against how we came to the conclusion that Safe Ride, at least, thank you so much. I'd like to give a few points, or I'd like to challenge the exact process by which we came to the resolution that Safe Ride should be defunded. The first point here, big point, is the key elements or the key thing Safe Ride offers students is trust and certainty that there's a way to get back home. Whether or not people cancel Safe Ride, the bus is still picking up people. So I find that correlation of 50% of Safe Rides are canceled, meaning it is not doing the work, doesn't actually fly because people are still getting picked up. Yes, it is not efficient, but I think we then have an opportunity as the Student Senate body broadly, or specifically the fee review committee, to say, okay, hey, transport, tell us how this currently runs. Can we offer specific changes or specific structural changes to ensure that that works better, rather than make the assumption that, okay, yeah, 50% cancel, so that doesn't work. 50% canceled, and we have 10,000 people who perhaps get picked up. That is still 10,000 people who are helped back home in that given instance. Second of all, I find that the previous speaker's point about it doesn't pick up, but you have to pick a specific location. The alternative for people who are drunk is to order Uber, wherein you still have to pick an exact location where you want to get picked up. Uber doesn't follow you around on the road looking for where the person is. Hey, this is the person that needs to get picked up. So that is fundamentally, Safe Ride, as it currently is following exactly how the other ride services work. The best and the biggest differential I think there is Safe Ride can track, okay, this student has picked up a ride every day this week and has canceled half of them. That is information they have. Uber doesn't have that information, and Uber charges you. I think that system still works. And I have another point more broadly about infrastructure and us thinking about infrastructure as trust. Yes, there's infrastructure as in the Memorial Union gets maintained,
and there's infrastructure, as in the buses are being funded. But infrastructure is also trust you have that you'll be protected from if something comes up, or trust you have that you'll get back home safely. So I think it's important for us to decouple the line of thinking that infrastructure, that these fees are necessarily funding hard physical infrastructure. These fees are also funding, okay, yes, this is a place I want to go to school at, and I'm going to be safe across the semester. I'm going to be able to get back home if I need to. And these are things that I believe Safe Ride do to some extent. And I think the final point I have here is I brought up earlier about our resolutions enforceable. And the reason I brought that up, and also the second question about do we look at exactly how the budget is spent in the previous cycle to look at it against the next cycle, is because it frankly feels like we're doing some lazy work here of the justifications are valid, but what else are we doing to ensure that something gets done? We're going to push this with Safe Ride getting cut by 10 or whatever, and have some valid justifications that this Senate body remembers, but the next Senate cycle does not exactly know the reason why we did this, or is not able to, in the middle of the cycle, say, okay, Safe Ride, mid-year, make these adjustments. So I feel we can, I don't know how that fits in within the constitution or the provisions we have, but I feel that there's definitely an opportunity for us as Senate body to be more specific about working with these groups to say, okay, this is how we might want things to. 30 and done. Thank you. I think we're more specific about this is what we can do, or this is how we want to be done, not just the resolutions that no one else remembers.
Before we go into questions. Sorry, before we go into questions, hold on. Megan, there was a part about how we did Safe Ride. Do you remember that we called? Margaret, yeah, we called Margaret. Oh, okay. Do you want to give a quick clarification about that? Yeah, the question was, how do we know what we were doing to Safe Ride?
Yes, so during deliberations on March 7th, we did call Margreta to ask about how different things would affect. Margreta's in the back there. She's very lovely, answered all of our questions on a Friday night. But she did answer a lot of questions about how different numbers would affect different things for us. So we weren't just making these decisions blindly. So we were getting the information from transit themselves.
Yes, Margaret is fantastic. I worked with her on a class project once. In that case, we will proceed to questions for 3 minutes. Hands up, hands up. Yes.
Grace Kelly, architecture student representative. I was just wondering if you support the resolution made by fee committee that calls upon Safe Ride to put in some sort of consequence for cancellations of rides.
As far as I knew when I came, that was already something that was embedded in when during orientation week. I was told in 2023 that yes, you can do Safe Ride, but if you did it over a certain amount in a year, on a week, you get flagged as, oh, this person is just always being irresponsible or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Hello, I'm Margreta DeFries from Transportation Services, and so I look at all of this data on a daily basis. Repeat the thing that you want to confirm.
That there was a system in place that checked, or like there was a system in place that tracked how often specific students or specific logins were requesting for Safe Ride.
So the software platform that we use, that you use as an app to request Safe Ride rides, does track data like that. However, on a user by user basis, we are not actually looking at that to determine if some student is using it in a specific way. I do look at it in aggregate to make estimations that I share with you all about how people are generally using the service, but looking for a problem user or somebody who's using it a specific way and flagging it does not happen.
Thank you.
Further questions? Hands up, hands up. All right, we'll go back to Douglas.
Douglas Jamal, Community Center for the Black Student Union. This has a question at the end, but I feel like I need to give some leverage. So
one of my biggest things is I remember I live at a scholarship hall and I live right next to the bars, and I see how many cars and how congested that area gets. And I want to say that Safe Ride is a very important tool that our students use. As we've heard, Safe Ride is still going to be having regulated times for students to get home, whether it be academic, stuff like that, because they're trying to have an education focus. Now, here's my question to you. Would you suggest to be a solution, and I'm going to say this, to the abuse of Safe Ride for students who want a free ride, seeing as the majority come from students at bars almost 6 out of 7 days of the week, Mark Monday, Bull Tuesday, Wasted Wednesday, class basically over on Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Saturday, and dare we win a game Sunday. That is a lot of where these 50% cancellations are coming from, and I've seen it firsthand, and that is a lot of wasted money for students who have other things to do. Now, they've cut what, Friday? They're still running on those other days. I think that is still very important. Oh, Saturday as well. So Friday and Saturday, the biggest days where people are out drinking and have money for $5 Moose Bowls, they're not prepared for an Uber.
Was there a question?
The question is, what do you suggest to be a solution to this? Because there needs to be a solution. We can not support this. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, Joel.
Thank you. I'm going to start off by referring to the point here is that students have been using Safe Ride within the constraints given. And Safe Ride offered right here a Safe Ride driver will pick up students whether at the library, a bar, and work. I think it is a bit. I think to then make a case against Safe Ride that people were using it for the bar while the bar was an option or explicitly mentioned as a way people should use it.
Back up from the microphone a bit. We hear
Okay,
your pause.
plosive. Sorry. So
You're
I think to make the case that it should not be, or to make a case against Safe Ride that people use it from the bar when we've told like it's here because they said, hey, you can use it from the bar, and now people use it from the bar and like, yeah, you guys use it from the bar. We're not doing it again. Guys, how does that sound?
So to clarify, your solution is that we should
No.
update the sentence.
Oh, I'm
Hang
sorry.
on.
Go ahead.
I wasn't done. That was like rhetorical question.
ahead. No.
Yeah, sorry.
We will go to other questions. Yes, Sophie.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you mind if we go to Sean? It's Sean's first question.
Sean Lawson, Associate Senator, the Finance Council. Through discussions with Margaretta, bear with me for a second, this is a question, by the way. Through discussions with Margaretta, I have heard that there is a 52% cancellation rate and that 17 users have canceled at least more than 100 requests. The highest number of that, the total requests with a cancellation rate of over 100 is 484 if you follow that 52% cancellation rate. There is somebody on this campus who has canceled about 250 Safe Rides. Does that make you think that this is a less efficient service?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there are definitely ways the service could be improved. My speech here, or the point I've been making is I think we're pretty unanimous that there are ways it could be more efficient, but it seems everyone here is seemingly comfortable with us just making that prognosis without thinking about and suggesting, besides the budget cuts, what else, how else can that be improved as people who use Safe Ride ourselves, like doing the extra thinking to say, okay, so what can we do about it? I'm here to kind of just raise that or flag that as a mini pointer for Safe Ride and the other things we fund for. Of yes, we can have, I think our reason is often sound, but and so what? The and so what part is something we just don't answer. Essentially, with those 70 people booking over 100, and now the entire, like, that's a pretty strong line of evidence. But now 25,000 students in KU are suffering the consequence.
Speaker's time is now expired. If there is no motion to extend time, we will proceed to the next speech. We do have a positive speech on the table. Just a thought for you all. It is currently 8:47 p.m. We need to be out of here by about 10 o'clock. And if the fee proposal is not passed, we will need to provide some recommendation to the fee review committee for further deliberations, which I imagine will take some time. So is there a motion to extend speaker's time? You're wanting to ask a question from Margaretta? Okay, go ahead.
So we've talked a lot about like cancellation rates. Does it cost Safe Ride when someone cancels? Like, how does that impact the Safe Ride expenses?
So it does not impact the cost. It just impacts the efficiency.
Right. So it just causes longer wait times primarily?
Yes, it's more complicated than that, but the essential answer is yes. The app that we're using is the most efficient Safe Ride we've ever run. And so it's allowed us to give more rides with the same amount of resources that we've been running on Safe Ride for more than a decade. The Safe Ride fee hasn't been increased in many years. And in fact, we have, like other entities, happily taken a cut in Safe Ride because we had a carry forward that is exhausting this year. And that's why this year is the first year that we've asked for an increase in, I think, more than 10 years for Safe Ride. So it's a matter of resources. If you have cars on the road, they can pick up more people. A service of this kind is called demand response, where we're going to where the demand is to respond. And the average, the average number of rides that kind of service can provide per hour of car on the road, keeping in mind that on Friday and Saturday nights we're running 8 or 9 cars, is 4 rides per hour. Safe Ride commonly is doing more than 4 rides per hour. And so comparing to other services of this type, the efficiency is good in general, but our demand is so high that we have this higher cancellation rate because we don't have enough resources to put towards it.
Thank you. If there is no motion to extend the speaker's time, we will move on to the next speech, which will be from the Vice Chair of the Finance Council.
There's a motion.
Sam?
Just one last question, Joel. Now,
No,
sorry,
the speaker's
I've
time is-
motioned already. My apologies.
What?
I motioned. My apologies. Did you need that again?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear it. What was your motion?
I'll just motion for 1 more minute.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, is there any objection to 1 minute extension? Go ahead.
Thank you, Joel. I'll try and be quick and hopefully not use the whole minute. Now, we've talked about the 50% cancellation rate as an inefficiency by Safe Ride. Now, I simply want to ask a yes or no question. Is it possible that the type of client, a person that may or may not be intoxicated at a bar, might be a cause of some of that inefficiency of cancellations?
Yes.
Okay, are there any further questions? Yes, over here.
Ready? Hi, my name is Amara. I'm a first-year senator. My question is, so do we feel like Safe Ride is, like, there being the word bar on that, in that parentheses, do we feel like that's promoting KU's alcoholism problem? And do you think we should address that issue instead of giving more funding to promote it further? And
I think within the merits of the counters that we raised to this, it does seem like there are other things worth addressing, like maybe people are frequenting the bars too often. That is, I'm putting this out there. And if there are those other issues that offshoot, my point is our resolution at this moment does not do anything to offset or cushion those other issues. It only cuts the budget.
Speaker's time has expired. If there is not a motion to extend time, we will proceed to the next speaker. It is 8:51 p.m. All right, we will hear from the Vice Chair of the Finance Council.
Put your hands together harder.
5 minutes.
Time's ready.
Hold on. Order. Please pay attention to our speaker. Go ahead.
Hey guys, Farzad, Vice Chair of Finance here. I was on the fee review committee. I've been on the fee review committee for the past 3 years, since Nick first got here, so very well familiarized with the process. This speech is going to be a bit of a downer. I haven't really planned it out, but the word I'll give it is the doomer speech. We are in a year where inflation is yet again outpacing our ability to meet the demands that have been given to the fee review committee to efficiently serve the services that are given to students. So what does this look like? We had $44 in asks this year. We were only able to service $10 worth of them. We have a 2% increase granted to us by KBOR, which is the Board of Regents for Kansas, and inflation is outpacing that. That is one point of contention that, one, we cannot meet the demands whatsoever. Let's take a look at history at the fee. The primary beneficiaries of this fee increase, quote unquote, it is actually not an increase. It is, in fact, staying stable or a decrease in services to where we were at in COVID. So based on my discussions with the directors of each fee package, even with the increase that we've given to the buses, we are not back at pre-COVID levels for buses. This is resulting in longer wait times, and entire neighborhoods in Lawrence, especially for international students that don't have access to cars, cannot get to KU without paying some kind of premium, or in certain cases of people I know, walking 2 miles to campus. And this has happened since the route cuts in 2020. The decision-making apparatus for the fee review committee was, what do we want to prioritize? Do we want to prioritize people getting to school or taking care of people at night? Primarily, students use these services during the day to get to class. That is the reason we come to this institution, to get an education, and many people do not use SafeRide in those same numbers. We are met with rising inflation, and then we are also in the midst of a budgetary crisis where grants are being canceled left and right. Many of the fee institutions, like the REC, for example, like Legal Student Services, have already informed us that the grants that they rely on for many of their services may well be canceled. It is a likely eventuality in the case of Legal Student Services. So Legal Student Services was the other entity that got a $5 increase. Now, is that an actual increase? The negative speech that was given insinuated that all of these other institutions got an increase in the fee. I'm here to tell you that all of our services are not getting better. In fact, every single service at this university is getting worse, even with the funding increase. And it will continue to get worse over the next few years if we see these rising costs and inflation, which is an absolute thing that will happen. So for legal services, we asked them for the last 3 years to spend all of their savings. They don't have any savings anymore. We also cut their fee dollars in 2020, before the rise of inflation, by $3 over these last few years. So they have been operating at a deficit. And now during this time, when we have more legal requests by students than ever in a long time, their most experienced attorney is retiring because he's about 70 plus years old, and we need somebody to fill in that position. The only way they can get that is with a $5 increase. It's either $5 or it's nothing. So the question I ask these institutions or people that present it is, where are you going to get the money? Where do you want to take it from? You can't take 5 cents from every institution because some of these are actually like interest payments that we're making. They're legal tenure that we have to make these payments. So we can't just take 5 cents away from everything. And if we take a certain amount from another institution, we have no idea how to litigate how that ends up affecting those institutions. The way we go about evaluating whether or not an institution is benefiting students is how many students are using this particular service. How much of an impact does it have on their lives? The UDK does not have the metrics. I have no personal animus against the UDK. I voted to increase them last year. This is not a year that we can fund an institution without sufficient metrics on student usage. I find their increase in viewership commendable. I was told in the first hearing that they had a 29,000 viewer increase. That is not 500,000. I don't know where that number is coming from, even if it may well be 500,000. If it's not serving students, then it does not play into the considerations of this committee. The primary considerations of this body, whether you were elected by people or appointed, your duty in this chamber is to service the rights of students who are forced to pay this fee. It doesn't matter if you take 1 class, 5 classes, you are paying $530 and you are forced to pay that. Now, should you represent their interests of how they use their services? My answer is yes. And the way you do that is by prioritizing the services that need it the most. Now, the key thing to remember is, with all of these considerations, again, services are getting worse or staying the same this year. There is no increase. 10 seconds. If we do not pass this package tonight, Student Senate will not have a right to decide where funding goes. You will not have that right, and it will be decided by admin. Do you want students to have that control or admin? That's your choice.
All right, thank you. We will move into a question period for 3 minutes. Hands up, please. Hands up if you have questions. All right, who haven't we heard from a bit? We haven't heard from Sam in a bit.
No, there was a guy on the far end.
Oh, yeah.
On
Who's
the
that?
end.
Who's that? Mafe. Mafe, can you come forward a bit?
Mafe's asked a question.
Did you have your hand?
Well, I have many questions, but I need to ask one. So my main question is kind of on your closing argument that if we don't pass it today, then we won't get the chance to. My question is, well, when the proposal is so outrageously bad in outright cutting to important services, well, who I think cares? Like, yeah, let's make people who actually know something make this decision. If the people who propose this completely ignore what Finance Council advise them on and just try to push through their ideas.
Yeah, how many hearings did you attend, Matvey? How much context do you have to your
Hey.
decision-making apparatus?
Hey.
That's my question.
Don't have an out loud argument in the middle of the floor. We're going to the next question.
None. You went to none.
Hey. Okay, questions. Sam.
Now, I just brought this up in Finance Council, so I simply want to bring it to this question to address everyone. Year over year, we've had a 3% to keep track with inflation increase in fees at about $500. That equates to $15 every year. And this last recent year, we had a $10 increase or a 2%. I simply would you be able to just explain to the Assembly a little bit more about why we went to a 2% instead of 3%?
So the plan of KU is to essentially increase fees by 10% over a 5-year period. That means 2% this year, 2% the next year, 2%, et cetera. That still does not account for other rising costs that have been the result of years of policies, in the case of LSS, in the case of buses, as well as the cancellation of grants across this country for a lot of the institutions that we have.
Yeah, I can add a brief clarification there. It was a plan created by KU administration that they discussed with the Kansas Board of Regents to increase the tuition costs by 2% each year over the next 5 years. Tuition includes the required student fees, so that includes a 2% increase to the fees. That's why we went from 3% down to 2%. Questions? Hands up, hands up. Do we still have a question from the... Okay.
Kenna McNally, Chair of Community Affairs. My point of information was just that I asked the Chair of the Finance Council during her presentation if this does not pass tonight, do we lose that right? And she said that the advisors did not say that that was a factual statement.
I think it is certainly, is that the question or the
That was my point of information.
Okay, never mind.
You can respond to it if you
Yeah,
want.
so my response to that is we only have a limited number of cycles left. You can't even apply for block or line anymore. So the idea that we are over the next 2 cycles, and again, the entire fee board has to meet again. I'm taking a lot of hours, and I know everybody else on that board is. It took us a month to find the right time to schedule. If you think we can find a time to schedule for every single one of these people, some of whom are graduating or leaving the country, I think you're gambling on the losing side with that.
Further questions? Yes.
Hello, Gracie Wheeler, business manager of the Kansan. So I have point of information / question again. Is that okay? To clarify
Yes.
the page views. Okay, so the 500,000, I think you might have just misheard because that's not the right number. So the February numbers we were talking about, that was 53,000 page views from last February versus this February, it was 132,000 page views. Individual viewers last February, 36,000, this February, 83,000. So those are the accurate numbers for that. Here's my question. So we're also working to get back to our pre-COVID status at the Kansan because we took a couple blows during that time. And yet we asked for a flat fee, not a raise, to match inflation. Minus every flat fee that is stable and unable to be changed, Can you please elaborate on why it would be impossible to take 5 cents from everyone to boost the Kansans funding?
Yeah. So the reasoning that I gave was, so how many institutions are we funding? Even if you took 5 cents from every other institution, you would not get a flat fee. That's not possible. With the amount of institutions that we fund, that's the first point, right? The second point is we don't actually know how many of those viewers are students. It's awesome that you guys are getting more views. That's great. But ultimately, the way we adjudicate our decision making and funding apparatus is how does this benefit students, not overall readers. That's your guys' prerogative as a newspaper. It's not Senate's prerogative as the representatives of students and students only.
Speaker's time has expired. It is currently 9:03 p.m. If we would like to go to a speech in opposition, we can do that. Is there a motion to extend time? If there is no motion to extend, what?
There's a motion to vote.
Oh, motion to vote. Yes, could we please get name and position? Ben Shea, Music Senator, motion to vote. Is there a second? Second from Angel. Objection? Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we move to vote on the required student fee proposal. If carried, this motion will mean no further debate. We will just move to vote on the proposal, and that will be it, essentially. We will get that posted in the Assembly voting channel shortly. A motion to vote takes a 2/3 vote to be carried because it affects debate rights. So once this is posted, vote in favor if you would like to end debate and vote on the fee proposal. Vote against if you would like to keep hearing discussion. You can step down if you want. This is going to take a minute. Sure. I got distracted by the news feed too.
For me. For
Go
you.
back to the agenda.
Really?
Don't open my email.
Oh, my apologies.
Yep.
I apologize.
You're good. There's this button here makes the screen go black for a moment. That's what I usually do.
I should have. How many minutes was that, Chris?
The poll is posted now. This will be a 1-minute vote. If you do not have voting access, and you should have voting access, please come to the front and we will get you sorted out.
To be fair, do you agree with the statement? None of these people watched our deliberations and don't know the risk of it getting zeroed out.
Yeah.
This was the best deal we could cut.
Yeah.
Considering.
Okay. Yeah, we both wanted.
Yeah, I asked for $2. That shit got
I wanted at
slammed.
least 180.
This is the best deal we got.
Like the
This
two
goes
of
back?
us and other
Yeah.
people wanted more. If this is the problem, then they can elect better people.
It's just watching the deliberations should have been a prerequisite because all this could have,
No, because
informed
although
them.
Farzad maybe was a bit out of line, I think that his question about me was really good.
No, I don't think he's out of line. I think it's just we're so frustrated with this kind of we should do this, we should do that. But at the end of the day, that's something you take up with the organizations because we give them money.
I would love to.
Yeah, no, we give them money, but at the end of the day, if they want to give it all to Safe Ride, that's on them. We have no internal say. Hence, the resolution is something to say, hey, this is kind of what we're wanting, but we can't force you to do anything. Okay, I'll change. Don't silence. I'll change my vote. What am I doing? Oh, I can't. I can't. Hey, I abstained, so it's not a vote to stop. You just hate me. So. I also need to talk to you. I kind of talked to Douglas.
Please resume your seats.
I don't know if you're hearing me after this suddenly.
Everyone, please resume your seats. The poll is now closed. On the question of ending debate on Bill 2025-060, in favor 37, opposed 13, abstaining 4. Accordingly, the motion is carried. We will proceed to a vote on the required student fee proposal. Do you have a point of information?
Yes, I do.
What's it about?
The bill. There are specifically the map of the bill.
Okay, come up, talk to Megan. No. If there's an administrative error, we'll just fix it. I'll talk to Megan.
I really wish we watched the delivery. It would have really informed their
This is based on a spreadsheet that we conducted. So
Yeah, but also, like,
but we will fix it. Thank you for
so they want it in person. They want the shit show in person. I'm like, $1.85 is the best we could get. That shit goes back. You know what I'm saying?
If I was admin, that's what I would do.
I said I think all the numbers.
That's my guess. That's just my, how much does it cost?
Everyone, order please. Order please. The poll is posted now. This is a vote on passage of Bill 2025-060, a bill to propose the required student fees. If you vote in favor of this, if the bill is passed, it will go to the student body president for signing. If the student body president signs it, it will then go to university administration and finally to the Kansas Board of Regents. If the bill is not passed, it will be sent back to the required student fee review committee for further deliberations, and I will ask us to provide recommendations for them on how the proposal should be amended to be passed in the assembly in the future. This bill takes a 2/3 vote to pass, and this will be a 1.5-minute vote. If you believe you should have voting access but don't, please come to the front. We'll get you sorted.
How y'all cooking? How y'all cooking?
No, I was. They didn't know the vote.
Oh, it is open. Yeah, vote is open. How y'all cooking? How y'all cooking? I'm thinking if this gets rejected, they're gonna get cut even more. This is the best deal we got. I was a fierce proponent for a $2 increase, or to increase it to $2. This is the best deal we got. If anyone had to say, I think they're gonna put them more. I think they're gonna put them more. So, huh? It's something like they struggle like issue is, it's like, then it's always gonna go to the parents for these hard decisions, and we need to be able to show that we can, that I genuinely think that people are like, upset with this increase, but it's like, it's really like a broad.
That fails. No, it passes. It passes. There's also fucking edit it now and stop the whole screen. Is there a way to stop it? We're counting it at 39:18. All right, we're done here. The assembly will return to order. On the question of passage of Bill 2025-060, a bill to propose the required student fees for fiscal year 2026, in favor 38, opposed 18, abstaining 1. Accordingly, the bill is passed. We have reached the end of our regular legislation. Are there any announcements to be made to the assembly? Yes.
Just a reminder that if you'd like to donate to Haskell, that bag will be in Robert's office until next Wednesday at 3 p.m. And there's a list of everything that they've requested in the WebEx Teams chat.
Thank you. Announcement from the finance chair.
Please keep an eye out for block and line scheduling. If you're interested, please email me.
Is there any further business to be?
If you're on the Constitutional Review Committee, please show up to the room that's posted for tomorrow. Please listen to the agenda soon, I promise.
Hang on, guys. We have an announcement from the graduate student body president.
Just a reminder for everyone, for the upcoming elections, there is a presidential and vice presidential debate this Friday at 4:30 or 4:15 in Woodruff Auditorium. If you would like to attend to be a more informed voter.
Thank you. Are there any further announcements? Hearing none, is there any further business to be brought before the assembly?
Motion to
If
adjourn.
not, we are adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone. Danae, could you come up here when you're done, please? No.
Live stream.
Yeah.